everyone. Thank you for being here. As you can see, it's already been a marathon, not just in the last 15 days where all the teams have been involved, staying up at night, etc. But there's a whole group of people who for the last maybe 2 or 3 months have been working on selecting the teams, getting the right ideas, creating the ecosystem around this event. We're at a key stage now. This is the end of the co-creation, and what we will be doing today is to look at the teams, the 10 teams that remain in India, and simultaneously in the UK, there are 5 teams that are also being judged. At the end of today, we will have teams selected for the next phase of the journey, the refinement process, both here in India and in the UK. I don't want to take too much time, so I'll just sort of quickly explain, quickly just introduce the judges. We only have 3 here present at the moment. And so we'll probably have to wait a little bit until we start our first presentation. Let me start with Biju Chandrasekharan. Biju, could you just stand up and identify yourself? So. Biju is a managing director of Finovate Partners. He's a qualified chartered accountant from the UK, and Biju has worked for over 25 years in the banking industry and now is very active himself in the social impact space. Apart from investing himself, he also helps VCs make investments, and when the money is not coming out, often they send Biju to make sure that the company works. So thank you for coming, Biju, and agreeing to be a judge. I'd like to next introduce Professor Ravi Shankar. He's a senior faculty member at the National Institute of Design. The National Institute of Design, we're very pleased to hear, will also join the Enable Makeathon in the long term, so very happy to have you here and some of your students here. Professor Ravi Shankar has been offering courses in design basics, in design methodology, digital production design, universal design module, and visual merchandising. He leads the NID Universal Design Initiative and has set up a universal design studio. He's worked in the areas of object and space for over 18 years in domains such as IT, mobile technology, voice interfaces, product design, retail design, and visual merchandising. Package design for consumer products, and design training in the indigenous craft sector. He is a co-author in the formulation of the Universal Design India Principles, and he was awarded the NID Business World Design Excellence Award in 2006. So we are very, very happy to have you as part of our judging team. I'd like to also introduce Dr. Catherine Holloway. She has actually come from the UK, where she has been leading the UK part of the exercise. She's an academic director and co-founder of the Global Disability Innovation Hub. She's a senior lecturer in the Department of Computer Sciences at UCL, and she is absolutely passionate about the design of usable assistive technologies. Very happy to have you here. Thank you. Just the course of the day, we will have a talk from Shakti, who has joined the Enable Makeathon process very recently, but has already been a great advocate of the process and has contributed hugely to all the teams that you have here. After Shakti's talk, we will have the main people, basically the teams, come in and present. Each team will have a very strict 10-minute deadline to present, which will be followed by 5 minutes by the judges, and then quick changeovers, we hope. We will pause briefly at 4 o'clock for a tea break, and then and then have the last 4 teams. At 10 to 6, the judges will retire and confer, and then at 6:30, we hope to be able to present the teams who are going forward to the next stage and the teams who are not, both, for India first. We will then have a tie-up with the UK to see which teams are going forward there. And then afterwards, at 7 o'clock, we will have a dinner and invite you to come and join us for that.
Are definitely the unsung heroes of the event. So before I start, Nihal is going to quickly tell you about how teams are going to be evaluated. And then I know most of you know your order, but just for your reference once more, it's Autobots, Bleetech, Shabla Oi, Enable India, For Growth, Defy, Tea Break. And then we have, after the tea break, Torchit, Tridots, Unicom, and Vilava. So just keep in mind where your spot is, so you know who you're coming up. So Nihal's going to quickly tell you about judging today.
Thank you. Wow, guys, so 15 days ago you all came in and you started with some very interesting ideas. Thank you. So this is kind of what, it's the first checkpoint for all of you, right? So what's going to happen by the end of this is, I think Tarun might have already mentioned it, but 5 of the teams will go on to the next stage. The others connect with us to figure out how we can continue to work with you and reach out to us for what it is that you need. Yeah. Now the process that we're going to follow today, we have 5 judges. They come in with various backgrounds covering design, technology, business, and of course the domain side of things. They will account for 60% of the overall score. Yeah, they're going to grade you on a range of parameters, and that will account for 60% of the score. Now, the remaining 40% is the internal assessment. It's what we've been assessing you on over the last 15 days. Yeah, that is your coaches and, of course, the core team. And I think a lot of you already know this. If you come in late, you lose points. Yes? You guys remember? So those of you who came in on time, very good. And of course, we're going to combine all of those scores. The overall result will be announced by the end of today. And of course, post that, you will get some feedback from the judges as well. Feel free to reach out for more in-depth feedback from the judges. Otherwise, a lot of the learning that you've got here shouldn't just be lost. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. We're just about ready to get started.
Yeah. Can I ask Shrikant and Dhruv of Social Alpha to come and sit up front? So Social Alpha is our incubation partner. They're here today. It's also good. It's great to get feedback from them post your pitch. So Team Autobots, are you ready? Yeah, let's get started.
Hello everyone, we are Team Autobots. We are 4 people. We are 4 final year students from the IT University. And we came to this co-creation as students, but we're happy to know that we're going back as very young entrepreneurs. Good cause in mind. So I hope after the pitch, we will have more people from you who will support us in this endeavor. So let's go. Pregnancy is a subject of high sensitivity to women. And there are several factors associated with it. Mainly because there are decisions and changes that is happening to the women. And this is why it is highly sensitive. So the main factors any woman who desires when it comes to detection of this pregnancy is self-reliance, accuracy, and privacy. And which is why the home-based pregnancy test came back in 1968, allowing women to know about their pregnancy before anyone else. But my question is, to what extent has these pregnancy kits been achieving these very claims? Because in the last 50 years, this model has not been rethought of or redesigned in terms of design or the technology. So what are the problems? Number 1 problem is the impractical design. Every kit comes with a testing pallet and a dropper. Now the dropper is so tiny and you're supposed to collect the urine in it. Now very interestingly, these kits do not come with a container to collect the urine first. So they automatically assume that every woman would have a clean, sterilized container in their washroom exactly when they have to test their pregnancy. Coming to problem number 2, vague interpretation of result. As you can see, the test kit comes with 2 lines. Analysis of this helps you detect your pregnancy. But sometimes these lines are so thin and so fade that the women often gets confused and cannot come to an exact conclusion, pregnant or not pregnant. And problem 1 and problem 2 makes it almost an impossible task for a woman with disability to use it. Even if, in case of visual impairment, even if a woman crosses the hurdle of using a dropper and figuring out how the test pallet works, the very fact that the result is a visual output makes it impossible for a woman with vision impairment to finally know whether she's pregnant or not. Which means a basic healthcare product is still inaccessible to to entire community of women, even in the 21st century. So the next logical step would obviously be for the women to get a second help, right? I personally spoke to a recently married woman with visual impairment, and she's confided something saying that I can trust my mom with almost every other daily activities I have, but not when it comes to pregnancy, because the minute she gets to know my test result came negative, until one fine day it becomes positive, she's gone to pester me. And this was not a silly remark she made. Talking with a professor from Chennai who also happened to be visually impaired, we realized that their community, what they need is not an extension product or a jugaad. What they want is to have a product manufactured, keeping them in mind. And that is exactly what EasyCheck believes in. EasyCheck makes products, basic healthcare products, keeping such communities in mind so that the design is universal model and can be accessible to all regardless of their disabilities. Our pregnancy detector is very simple and easy designed with a good ergonomic design made. And one of the most important feature of this, it can be reusable, which is not offered by any of the pregnancy kit in the market. On an average, a woman tests their pregnancy test results 2.4 times, because just to confirm and make sure it happens. As I said, pregnancy is extremely sensitive. And we make sure our device makes the test result extremely discreet so that only she gets to know and she can decide who gets to do it and when. And also to mention that the whole point of lines fading and creating a confusion in their minds, our design goes for a tactile output, making sure there's no confusion and the result has 100% clarity in it.
So we have a small video to show how the design aspects are very important when it comes to making the devices which can be accessed by the visually impaired people. So just play the video.
The design of EasyCheck pregnancy kit has been well thought out that even a visually impaired woman can navigate through the device with extreme ease. The pointed ends generally give a visually impaired woman the sense of the alignment, which is why we incorporated a sharp end towards the top part and a blunt end to the bottom so that they can easily differentiate and use the device.
When we open the device to the cap, we can see a small protrusion at the end which contains a cavity. This cavity is what takes in 2 to 3 drops of urine, which is processed inside at this part, which contains the antibodies which reacts with the components of the urine and forms a red band. That red band is detected by the color sensor which will be fitted on inside this, and it will show tactile output here, which can be felt by the user like this, and the pregnancy, and she can find out whether she's pregnant or not.
So apart from this, this is the disposable model which we have right now. Our main goal is to make a reusable model, which is a part of our vision to help women with visual impairment to maintain their intimate hygiene. This is the reusable device which we have here. This is a model of the reusable device. We have 3 different devices, which are the pregnancy detection kit. The second is the reusable device to track the menses, and third is a reusable device to track the ovulation of the women using it. So what's so important about these is, the first one, the pregnancy detection kit. When we asked in many pharmacies in Bangalore, they told us that on average, when a woman comes to them to buy a pregnancy detection kit, they at least buy 2 or more than 2. And sometimes they come multiple times in a month or a week to buy another set of them. Now, we wanted to make this go away, and by using a simple pregnancy device which can be reusable, so that the women buying it can reuse it anytime they want. Apart from this, we also are planning to make a reusable menstruation tracking device. Now, when we was talking to many visually impaired women in the Mitra Jyoti and other associations, they told us that, for example, if their menstruation starts from 12th and it ends on 20th, they start wearing their sanitary pads from 12th till 20th, and they have to keep changing the pads 2 to 3 times a day. Now, taking into consideration that the prices of sanitary pads have risen so much in these days with 28% GST, it's very hard to buy pads and use it. So what we have come up with is a reusable menstruation tracking device, which could at least tell you when your menstruation is going to happen, at least 3 to 4 hours before it's going to happen. So you can just keep track of it and use it whenever you want. The third one is ovulation tracking device. Many couples who are planning for family planning need some kind of measurement or device which could tell them when the ovulation is going to happen. Now with the reusable ovulation tracking device, we are targeting just that. So those are the devices which we are going to make in the future, and we are currently in the R&D stage of those devices right now.
So currently in the market, we have a wide range of products from big corporate giants. And so basically the pregnancy kits have been there in the market for about past 50 years. But the problem is none of them has ever thought of people with disabilities while designing their products. But the problem is that, not the problem for our product is that they have gained a great trust and reliability amongst the customers. So this is the main competition we are facing. So to tackle this competition against the big corporate giants, what we thought is to collaborate with the influencers from various strata and various community, and we'll collaborate them to spread our message of revolutionize our idea and make people aware of our cause, that we are basically thinking towards the people with disabilities while designing our products.
Yeah. Coming to the business aspect of our product, last year itself, about 450 million pregnancy kits were sold. And the total revenue was about $30 billion across the globe. And as Devanjan told, public awareness through social media, Facebook, Twitter, and all of that is very important for our product. And once that's done, we want to collaborate with NGOs and media partners for getting the entire thing out. Next slide. So there are two main things. One is mass scale deployment that we are looking at, where we are trying to collaborate with UNHRC, WHO, World Bank, and so on. Yeah. For our final plan, we've already started grant applications for the R&D and collaborations with all the organizations, and then get approval from CDSCO, US FDA, and then hopefully by 2019 July we should get our product out. Thanks a lot. Yeah. So any questions?
Important lesson you four have learned from this event, and tell me how would you change the things you're going to do going forward, especially in the next 45 days?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. As I said, when we came here as students, we were so focused on the technology, the product we were making. We really didn't think much about the end user. But the 2 weeks we interacted, like on the phone and face to face, so many women we actually spoke to. I would like to say one thing what one of the women spoke to me on the phone. She was like, you see, I really spoke to you for the 15 minutes and I really liked it. And so many people have spoken about such amazing ideas of products for us, but I've never really seen any of them in the market. So can you tell me one final thing? Will you actually bring it to the market, or is it just another technology or competition what you're doing? And I promised her that one day you will see this product outside. So I feel that is the sort of dedication we want to show. That is what has changed, because finally we have grasped what the end users actually expect from us. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart.
So is the lesson learned what
Yes,
the
yes,
dedication
the
needed?
actual life, the problems faced by the end users, and the technological solution, whatever we explained here, was so simple and could have been done by a lot of people, but it's not there in the market because they're not thinking into it. And we are glad actually we got that opportunity to actually think and do something about it.
On the product side,
Yeah.
use a tactile.
Yeah.
It's going to have that. How sure are you that's going to work?
Okay, so we have actually seen, one Mr. Paul we met during the co-creation. He's actually made a braille device of which the tactile outputs are possible to come out. So we're using the similar principle to bring it to our device. I think
It actually uses a braille cell, even if we don't use a braille cell which is made of solenoids, we could just use a servo motor which has a protrusion at the end, and whenever the signal comes, it can just pop up and can show that the woman is pregnant.
Have you thought of any other ways, any other technologies, any other simpler ways?
Initial idea was vibration, so that it can be feasible for almost everyone. But the problem is, if you're talking about the community of visually impaired, they generally associate vibration with alarm, as something you should be scared of, a fear. So which is why we took off the vibration and kept tactile, because that is universally accessible and there is no fear associated with it. Because the whole point of the product is to enhance the user experience, and we do not want one community to associate any other emotion to it.
Okay, technically, where do you find you might hit a roadblock or where do you find a challenge technically right now?
Right now,
Meaning, all seems good. It's a wonderful product. Where do you see that technically?
till now we have actually worked out all the phases except for that tactile output. Rest all of it, we've actually done it and worked it out. But I believe that could be a much easier process. We do not think that'll be a huge technological problem.
Also, when I was talking about the reusable device uses a polymer-based sensor which can detect the molecules which are present in the urine. That's the basis for the output which is given out. So we were also, as I told you, we are in the R&D process right now. We were screening many types of polymers which could be used for that particular molecule can be used. So applying that in real life and just optimizing all the things are very important that we haven't done till now. It takes a bit of time. So that's what that's one of the things which we want to do, and that's, I think, would be important as well, because it's biological things. You never know what could happen in biological, but we know how to troubleshoot this, and we'll do it.
One last question.
Yeah.
It's a product related to women, and there's a huge rural population across the world, and especially in India you have the. So what are the challenges that you see? Do you see challenge out there?
Actually, we have already faced that challenge, because not a lot of women in the
Acceptance challenges.
Yes, because especially if we talk about pregnancy
So I've thought
tests.
about it. You've
Yes,
thought about
definitely.
it.
And we've also thought of just different
Not
plans
thought about
to-
it. You see that it's going to be a challenge in the future
Yes.
for you. Okay.
But we all.
Yeah, with respect to the pregnancy kits challenge that you're talking about, there was a program that was launched by the Indian government, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So they were distributing free pregnancy kits for the past 18 months. Since 2015, they've been doing that. So even the rural community now knows what a pregnancy kit is, and they're actually using it. So we can actually expand our market over there also.
It's a slow process, but it will happen one day.
And when we were talking about the various organizations, like Shibu said, and NGOs and other organizations which are involved in reaching out the rural places, those are the organizations which we target to place our product into, so that the rural women can also access it.
Hi, can I also ask a question about the product? So there's two things. One is, I believe the innovation is the polymer. Is that correct? Okay, so you haven't actually designed the tactile feedback yet. You just have ideas for it. That's great. Yeah. So then my question is around the reusable. So how will a person clean this device?
That's one of the parts of a business as well. This is the reusable device, and you as you know that every part of this is reusable. So there will be sensor placed here, and this is the place where everything is collected: the urine, the washed items, everything. So what we are thinking of is a bottle with a ethanol and or a washing buffer, which will be provided with the kit. Yeah. So that can be put into a bottle and can be put where the urine is initially put down. And using the detergent is important as well when you consider the working of the whole model. That's what denatures the protein which is attached there and removes it from there, so that it can be used again.
Yeah. Okay, I think it's important to think about how a visually impaired person would do that, but I'm sure you're going to.
Yeah, the design aspect of that we have thought into. We were thinking of just including two holes on the one side and the removal hole from one side, which it can be collected and just directly put it inside. That we'll put more thought into it, and we'll refine the whole model in the coming days.
And so my final question is, what would you do with the next 45 days if you get incubated, if you stay for the refinement stage?
First would be actually incorporating the tactile output to the product, and ensure that every end user we are trying can actually use it with extreme ease. Find out if they're facing any challenge we have not figured out yet. Improve that first.
and then move to the reusable model and make sure the designing of that model makes it extremely efficient for anyone to actually use it.
Apart from the designing for the reusable model, we'll be also doing the technical aspects of it, like the using various polymers and just checking out whatever is good for that. Because as I told before, it's all on optimization. So we'll be doing that as well in the following 45 days.
Just 1 second. Can you go back to that slide? Yeah, back. Yeah. So the main target audience over here that I told you about UNHRC, WHO, UNICEF. All of these people actually distribute all of these kits to the areas that have conflicts over there. And the main problem that arises over there is all these kits have to be stored at a specific temperature. You might not have access to refrigeration and all of that over there. Our kit, our reusable model is independent of temperature. So that's a big advantage over there. And secondly, for with tie-ups with diagnostic centers and hospitals, any woman who gets pregnant, if she goes to a diagnostic center or a hospital, does the pregnancy a normal pregnancy kit is what is used generally, unless there's some complication. So the existing one is just use and throw, and I think these people will also have a good, it'll be very useful for the diagnostic centers. So these are the two main areas that we are targeting.
And I would like to add to that, we'll be collaborating with various NGOs to reach out to the end users. But in cases where a lot of them are not a part of an NGO or an association, and in order to target them, which is why one of the reasons we're going for hospitals, because they might not be associated with an NGO, but they'll definitely have connection to the hospital. So using their services, we can reach out to even to the ones who have not been, out in the out.
One last quick question. With regard to market size estimation, did you also consider that this could be used by the abled market?
Yes, yeah, that is why the universal model. We have made sure every woman can use it.
Okay, but maybe reason why I asked is I didn't see it as part of distribution, that's all. I understand. Okay, thank you.
Please welcome on stage Bleetech.
Good afternoon. My name is Snehal and I am partially deaf and working with the team lead. Today I am here to tell you my story. I could hear till I was 12. After that I lost my hearing sense. Now I am using a sign language for communication. So I am going to explain you the next part of the presentation in the sign language.
When I was born, I was hearing. In my family and school, I studied Marathi. But in 5th standard, they introduced a new language. And at the same time, I started losing my sense of hearing. So when the teacher used to teach, I couldn't understand anything. I couldn't hear to the pronunciations. Even now, when I come across a new word, I associate that English word with Marathi word, and that's how I learn how to pronounce that particular word. Now, all of us, when we learn our first language, how do we develop our first language? We listen to our family members, parents talking, and we try to copy and imitate them, right? But if a person is born deaf, how will he or she develop his language skills? So that language development is really low. For example, let me show you how my deaf friend communicates with me over written language. So it's very difficult to understand, right? Did you understand anything? This is a big problem that deaf community faces. So because of this, there is one more problem. Now for all of us, if we have a question and don't know the answer, where do we go? We Google, right? But when you Google search, there is a list of articles that come, and all of them are in English, which deaf people really can't understand. Because of this reason, deaf people are sometimes excluded from the outer world and they feel very disconnected. I feel very lucky that I get good family support. I went to a good school and I had good teachers. I feel even more lucky that I get to work with Team Bleed to solve this problem. So how are we solving this problem? I want to invite Nupura to explain it further.
Thank you, Snehal. So as Snehal just explained, this is a huge problem. And we are working with deaf community for almost 2 years now. And we realized that this is a big problem and we wanted to do something about it. So we started experimenting with WhatsApp, and we had one WhatsApp number where we started receiving questions from the deaf community. So right now we accept questions in form of text, image and video. So this is one of the example what kind of questions we are getting. So this is the question, and I'll quickly show you one example answer that we are giving. You have to play.
B-A-N-G, bang, making a sudden, very loud noise. Let me give you an example. If there is a surface and someone hits really hard, the sound that is created is called bang.
So when we started, organically we were reaching out to more than 1500 people. So far we have answered more than 400 questions. And if you just consider English word meanings, we have more than 750 words in our library, which we try to explain with some contextual example. And plus we sometimes add visual element to it. And plus, if we are getting repeated question and the demand is high, we put that content on YouTube, and on YouTube also we are getting really good response. So this is a small video of feedback of our current users. The kind of opportunity that we have is huge. There are 17 million people who are deaf or hard of hearing in India, and majority of them use some form of sign language for first mode of communication. Sign language comes very naturally to a deaf person, and access to sign language education is their basic right. Still, we just have 250 good interpreters in India, and there are only 700 schools who teach you formal Indian Sign Language. So the gap between a person, a deaf person, and accessible information is huge, and we are trying to bridge that. So we are very lucky to be part of Enable Hackathon, because in these 15 days, we managed to put a working prototype, which I will just show you quickly with the help of video. So it's an app. Majority of deaf population in India are using some form of sign language. Many of them don't know Indian Sign Languages, which is like a formal language. For example, when we were talking to Project Defy, they have a girl who's 10 years old. She's with us today, but she doesn't know how to communicate. So for her to learn sign language, We are making it very easy by just giving them visual reference. Like for example, here we have mother, picture of a mother, and just sign of the mother, so that they can learn and develop their vocabulary. And this is that feature where we show a picture and its sign. And we have also implemented a backend where our team can access the questions that we are getting and maintain a timeline for that. So this is just a start for us. We want to create an entire ecosystem around this, and we want to cater to entire deaf community. So we understand to do that, we need to sustain ourselves. So how we are going to sustain ourselves? So we are focusing two major groups. Okay. So we are focusing two major groups, deaf users and businesses. So for deaf user, we are planning to have basic subscription model, which will be like maybe ₹1 per day. And we'll provide sponsor content and premium content on the app. And to generate this content, we'll be partnering with different businesses and make their content accessible for the deaf community. So for other businesses, like banking section, if you take, if a person needs interpretation service when he or she goes to a bank, he can contact us and we will provide the services needed for that particular situation. So in terms of our roadmap, right now we have developed a prototype which we can directly start testing out with our current user base. We are also working on AI-enabled chatbot, which will reduce our time to interact with the person. And we are also trying to get businesses collaborate with us to create accessible content. I'm very happy to share that we have almost finalized a deal with BSc Institute, and they are ready to partner with us for creating a series on financial literacy. So we are planning to launch this product in February 18, and then our entire focus shifts on new user acquisition. So after we launch the product, after 6 months, we'll try and start the subscription model. And plus, at the same time, we'll try to get new businesses on board, because we feel that B2B businesses are, for us to sustain, it's a better choice for us. So that is about it. Currently, we are looking for great mentors. We are very lucky to have Shakti sir, Angel ma'am with us. And we really feel that this kind of mentorship will help us a lot in taking this product to the market. And we are also looking for different connects to corporates where we can collaborate and make the content accessible. Plus, our immediate requirement of funding is around 25 lakhs. So this will include mainly increasing our team, some marketing efforts that we need to put, and basically technology development and operations. Thank you.
So you've been practicing, or you've been testing your business model using the WhatsApp ecosystem. So how long have you been doing that, and what have you found as the most challenging aspects of building your business model from when you started to now?
So we started around 3 months back, and actually we started this as marketing initiative for one of our other products, which is for the deaf community. And we realized that people are asking us questions because there is a gap, like she said. So our main challenge was kind of questions we were getting, the range of questions. We were getting very basic questions like, what is the meaning of increase and decrease? We were getting complex questions like, how GST applies to your bank transactions. So the main challenge that we faced initially was to how to optimize our process so that lead time, like the time when we get question and we answer them back, this time we need to reduce. So that is our biggest challenge as per now. And also, like I said, the sign language is not unified all around India. So we need to make our videos easy to understand and accessible, so that we have to put, maybe we have to put captioning and sound to it, so the videos also become kind of an educational tool. So optimizing the process, finding right talent, and building suitable technology for it is 3 main challenges that we have right now.
And so currently your turnaround time is, from what I remember,
48 hours.
48 hours.
Yes.
So what is your ambition, or what will you reduce it down to, let's say, in 6 months and a year?
So our aim is to make it as quick as possible.
Yeah, but like as a number?
Yeah, so we were thinking of giving two types of services. One is urgent, where we can take the question live, and one is the same path that we are following, but with the reduced timeline, so it will be like few hours.
So for the urgent, you will do it in a few hours?
So for the urgent, we'll do a live chat and try to solve that problem. Okay. And for other people who are ready to wait, we'll give the answer back in few hours.
Okay. And you'll have two different pricing for both streams?
Yes.
Just a couple of questions on Jen. One is, this is meant for, this is not for vernacular questions, in the sense I would have to have specific questions on words which I don't understand in English.
No, we are getting questions around, like from almost around 15 states right now. And people are asking this question in Kannada, Gujarati,
So majority
Marathi.
is what? Is it?
Majority, they want to learn English, so majority, the theme is English word meaning. Plus we get questions around politics, science, current affairs, then some entertainment questions like why Katappa kill Bahubali. So yeah.
Okay. So if I may ask, how many questions do you get in a day now?
Around 10 to 15
10
questions.
to 15
yeah.
questions. So you said there are 200 ESL trained, ISL trained practitioners here.
Yes.
So how will you scale that, considering that base is also small?
Yes, so right now the process that we follow is we take the question, we find the answer, then we have one interpreter within our team who's doing the translation, and one deaf person who's doing the ISL video actually. So this model, we don't want to automate the content generation model because we want to employ more deaf people also. Because we have observed, like if you remember the guy in the video, he's very expressive, and sign language is like one of his best skills, I would say. So if we utilize that and provide one more job opportunity for deaf people, we might not need interpreters to answer back.
The B2B part of the business, are you planning to work with content providers from entertainment? You said two segments, entertainment
Yes.
and I forgot the second one. Which one was that?
Education.
Education.
Yes.
So you plan to work with them, and by which you convert their content into easily understandable subscription service for the hearing impaired. Is that what you're thinking of?
Yes, so there are also again two options. One is, like you said, for example, FAQ section of Amazon. We can translate that into sign language. And second one is, we actually ourselves create the content with different partners. Like for example, we have one NGO with us, Enable India. They are trying to build a dictionary in sign language about specific, like they have one candidate who's going to a big corporation, and the signing he requires is specifically about engineering and software related words. So in that case, we can collaborate with them for the content generation.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you.
It's not a question, but basically I just wanted to say this is like a great initiative. First of all, congratulations. I'm quite moved by the thought that you've given, because there's a lot of disconnect between people with hearing impairment and when it comes to language, right? But have you also thought about a little more deeper issues to solve? Like for example, last year we worked on pregnant women who can't hear face a lot of critical issues because they don't understand the kind of checkups that they have to go. So it's like a real serious issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
So have you thought about those as well, that you can actually target that kind of solution which is deep and which is critical? Have you gone to that depth?
Yes, so like you said, this is one of the major issues. The issues that we have observed is about counseling. So there are not many, like number of counselors who can give you, that session should be accessible for a deaf person. So that is one of the major challenges. Then one of sex education, if I can tell from my experience that that is also one of the deeper subjects, I would say, that we can look into. So definitely in future we want to tackle that as well.
So my question is the same as to the last team, which is what would you do with the next 45 days?
So, as I said, with great mentorship, we have developed the prototype, and the prototype is at level where we can take that and test it out with our current users. So, by testing out, we can fine-tune the technology, and we will work on the lead time, as I said, and plus we are looking for more people to join our team so that we can expand this and actually start using this product and services.
So when you say work on the lead time, what technically is the challenge for you?
So initially, Snehal handles all the operations right now on WhatsApp. So the main issue was when we used to get a question, the first interaction would take around 10-15 minutes per user for her. So we have reduced that time using automated chatbot. So that part has been, that time has been reduced. But the main challenge is to generate content around that question. So we need more people, like we were talking to Angel also, that how we can include more people, collaborate more and accelerate that process. So once we have the entire library, if we get repeated questions, it would be easier for us to answer back quickly. So technology and talent acquisition, these are two main.
I next invite Chabla.
Hi guys, hello India. My name is Marko Vuoriheimo. I come from Finland, the country that the actual Santa Claus is from, officially, right? So my colleague here, Iris Lehtinen, please stand up. She's with me. So I'm the world's first deaf rap artist, and I've also been working as the special envoy to the Finnish Foreign Ministry, having to do with human rights of disabled people. But now what I'm going to talk to you about is my business going into sign language interpreting services. In Finland, I have a sign language interpreting company that employs 20 interpreters, but all of this still doesn't answer and cater to my everyday problems and challenges. So I decided to solve my everyday problems by founding a company. These are challenges I face every day in life. I can't call anywhere. I can't call the car dealer. I can't make phone calls like all of you can. On the other hand, if I bump into any of you on the street, we're in trouble, because do you know how to sign? Do you know how to sign? No? No? Nobody? You can sign? No. So that means, what are we going to do? How are you going to communicate? We can write, but that's not my mother tongue we would be using, right? That's your language. So, or, for example, if I need to get service from a hospital, customer service, and they have a callback service, what do I do if the interpreter is gone and my phone starts ringing? Or if one of you wants to just call me on your regular phone? You know, I'm very dependent on having a physical interpreter with me at all times. So, how I decided to go about solving this problem is by creating a mobile interpreting service that would be available everywhere, anywhere, 24/7 and globally. So, I can call you through this app, and an interpreter pops up on my screen through the Chabla app. And you can just talk as if you're talking to, having a normal phone conversation, and I can sign in my mother tongue, and the interpreter will interpret both ways. Or, for example, if a police comes up to me, a live situation, I just take on my phone, push one button, and an interpreter comes up and hears what the police is signing to me, talking to me, signs it to me, I sign to the phone, and that is loudspeaker to interpreted into speech through the loudspeaker. So, this is a global solution, and we've been calling it kind of the Uber of interpreting services. Here in India, you have very few interpreters, 250 only. But most of your deaf people here in India know British or American Sign Language. So, for example, if in this Chabla app we don't have right now available an Indian Sign Language interpreter, we could maybe connect to Britain, maybe London. There's an interpreter sitting just waiting for a Chabla call to come in who can interpret into British Sign Language. And then India gets service through that channel. So, when I started developing this product, we had Skype and we had FaceTime as other options to use, but they are prioritizing the audio channel, right? So when we have a weak signal, then the video stops or it gets really crummy. But when we started developing the Chabla app, we wanted to make it vice versa. So when the network connection gets weak, then the resolution of the video will lower, but the video will never stop moving. So that way, we're always able to communicate through the visual channel in Chabla. So we're the only app and technology in the world right now that's in our current market space, because up here you see Facebook and such, which don't employ interpreting services. And then on the other hand, we have a lot of interpreting services all around the world, but they're only national level services, not global. We've already finished our iOS version for the deaf clients and for interpreters to use, and we've also finished the iOS version for the interpreters. What we're working on next is the Android version for deaf clients and a webified version of our software, because a lot of officials want to use their computer and make calls from their browsers straight or from their computers straight to people's phones when they need to provide customer service. And in the near future, we're also going to start Chabla Academy, which is a way for us to recruit and educate new interpreters coming into the app to work for us. For example, in India, there are a lot of people who know how to sign because they have deaf family members, for example, and there are resources that we want to reach and be able to put into their full use, for example, through interpreting work. And then, in the further future, we're going to incorporate AI. Chabla has enormous social impact. For example, employment. Deaf people using this are able to found their own companies and their own businesses and run them on an everyday basis. Also, Chabla is a way for interpreters, a growing base of interpreters, to be able to be employed. Empowerment is personally a very valuable thing that Chabla brings, because it means that I have access to my basic human rights and independence without being dependent on someone else's help all the time. I'm deaf and I have the right to use my own voice without somebody else helping me to do it. It's a human rights issue. Accessibility. If I want to, I can call and I can gain information from wherever I need. Communication is something you need at work, school, and in everyday life, and you should have access to it equally. So, this is a global issue you see right here on this slide. Interpreters are traveling really long distances. And if you see my example, this is from Finland, where 45 minutes is a horrible long commute to work. Here in India, it's probably ridiculous because you travel a lot longer commutes. But for the interpreter to travel 45 minutes, interpret for 15, and then travel back the same time, you're just serving one client in 1.5 hours, if you think about it. During that time, you could have served so many more clients and made that service accessible if you were doing it right. So with Chabla, you can work in one place and serve many clients and provide that service in the same amount of time. Here's how our business works. We have two streams. So we have the B2B side. For example, in Finland, we're already working with insurance companies and banks who want to provide deaf people with free possibility to call their customer service through our Chabla app. They're paying the cost for it themselves. And then on the other hand, we have a subscription-based B2C business model, which means that clients are paying minute-based or monthly-based. And what costs are, mainly our costs are going to interpreting, paying for the interpreter salaries and the technology partnership and maintenance. We're involved with the incubation program at GE Startup Health, and our technology partner who developed with us is CGI. We've had a really great year with Chabla. We've won 5 different main awards in different competitions. And now we're nominated in a digital services kind of, so to speak, Oscar awards in 3 different categories. That's in February of next year. So Finland's, it's the first time ever that a Finnish innovation has been nominated in 3 different categories at once in this competition. Here's my team. And since we've launched this product, we've had enormous media interest in Europe. And I'm not sure if any one of you have heard my music. Okay, no?
It's okay, you wouldn't understand anyway. I was born, but I wasn't born yesterday. Hey, my mama told me it would never be easy, it would never be easy. My mama told me it would never be easy, it would never be easy. It's okay, you wouldn't understand anyway. I was born, but I wasn't born yesterday. Hey, my mama told me it would never be easy, it would never be easy. My mama told me it would never be easy, it would never be easy.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Are you all in shock? It's so silent.
No, I'm ready to ask a question, so I just want so assuming you want to expand the business into, let's say, a developing country like India, what do you think are probably the 3 big changes?
Excuse us just a moment.
Sorry, yes, go on. Yeah, what do you think are the top 3 challenges that you'll have to sort of think about and adjust your current business model in a developed world like Finland?
Well, first of all, I've only been here a very short while, but I've had time to meet some very influential people and important people. I've met deaf clients, and I've met investors, and I've met interpreters. And I've been able to look into, how we would adapt our subscription-based service here, because the European concept obviously doesn't work. It's very hard to adapt here on the subscription-based side. So we would really have to look into that a lot more. I need to do more testing, especially in the rural areas, about how, you know, because you'll have a lot of different networks, and internet will work very differently there. So that's something very much I want to look into. And then thirdly, a third challenge, these two. I think those are clearly the biggest challenges that I already can foresee needing a lot of work with. We've met a lot of deaf people here, and I've told them about the Chabla app, and their immediate response was that they didn't believe it at first. They said that can't be true, and you know they're already waiting to be able to get it into use.
Hi. How much do you charge for one session at the moment?
Well, remember, European standards are just ridiculously different from the market price that we would have here. But here, I've talked to interpreters, and it would be, we've heard that an estimate of their 1 hour interpreting salary would be 200 rupees. So I think that 8 to 10 rupees per minute would be something closer to what would be an appropriate price in this market, but we would really have to do very accurate research on it to be able to say. In Finland, if you think about the normal interpreting, any interpreted service, like for example, phone companies or such, who charge you a minutely service fee, it's 1.5 to 2 euros to call any kind of customer support, which you wouldn't ever have here, I'm sure. So we really need to scale it.
Just two related questions. One is, what is the average number of minutes per session?
3 minutes for 3 minutes for one call is an average.
Okay, and one more last question, if that's okay. In the current market scenario, you said that you'll have to book an interpreter who comes to your place and does the interpretation for you. What is the number of such sessions that an interpreter gets per day today?
Well, in Finland, we have a very good situation with interpreters right now because we have 5,000 deaf people and 500 interpreters to serve them. Here in India, it's about, well, they say 18 million deaf people. I'm not sure I believe that, honestly. I think the real number of sign language users, like whose mother tongue it is, closer to 4 million. But interpreters, 250. So you can already see the difference there, which is significant. But me in Finland, last year, during the whole year, I used 1,500 hours of interpreting service.
Thank you.
Of course, I see a huge impact. There's a big impact that I can see. I would like to know if... Yeah, I like to. There are a couple more scenarios I'd like to understand if you are looking at. One is the school scenario. I like the way you had said that I don't understand sign language, so I'm equally disabled, Yeah.
Yes, correct.
So that way, when we're talking about conversation, and so if I look at a scenario of in a working office environment, if I'm looking at an office environment, and if I'm looking at a conversation amongst colleagues over coffee, is it possible that your application or your service can extend or scale up to that or modify itself or can be designed in that context also, number one. Second is in a school scenario. How will it work? only if you have some thoughts on it, or is it?
Well, of course, for example, in one company that wants to provide these hearing and deaf people, ability to communicate with each other, they can always, book an interpreter if they want a specific interpreter, for example, for a specific environment, because of the knowledge it requires to be able to interpret there, they're able to contact that interpreter. They could be available for that. But we have there on the back end of our technology, we already have an available to be able to book certain interpreters if you specifically require for a certain environment, a certain kind of interpreter.
Are you thinking of technology in that context? Right now it's very service, very people-centric, and soon you would have. I'm trying to look at a situation where, like, I'm disabled, I'm unable to speak to him, or have a conversation with him. So what about me? That's what I'm trying to understand.
So, for example, right now, if you have the mobile app in use, or if he has it and he would meet you on the street, they can open up the link to the interpreter right on the screen without having to make a call anywhere. You can just have the live interpreting on the spot through the app. And that's why we're also wanting to expand to the webified version, so that, for example, in schools or in job places, you can also have the app on a larger screen, so you are not just tied to the mobile, so you can use it also through a larger equipment. Does this answer to your question? Yeah. Yeah.
Could I ask one quick last question? I just want to know what impact the next 45 days would have on your thoughts about the academy, because given the relatively or abysmally small number of interpreters in India, I would see that as a market opportunity, and I wondered if it had influenced your thoughts.
Well, the academy would be really important in this Indian market, especially here, because right now, what's most crucial is to get interpreters inside of the program and start working. And at the same time, find those people who aren't using this sign language ability resource. Who they can sign, but they just didn't even maybe imagine that they could work as interpreters. Quickly try and access those people and try and get them inside to the academy to learn and be trained. And we really need to have at least 2 people working here in this market. We need, for example, Angel could be one. And then we need, a deaf person who work as experts in understanding and evaluating the level of these interpreters and students within the Chabla Academy to see when they're qualified enough. So here's where you are able to work for Chabla. Here is where you're not quite able to, but you need some extra, training to become qualified enough to work at the level we require in our app. We have a strong international cooperation with WASLI, and they have talked about wanting to really help us and connecting with ISLIA here locally. And this is something, this cooperation would be used for the academy purposes.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. We are Team Enable India. On the team today, we have Shiva and Pradeep, and I'm Vishwas. So Enable India is an organization that's been working for economic independence of persons with disability with dignity. So we are an organization, we are primarily an NGO, and we have been in this space for about 17 years now. And the body of our work includes, working with persons with disabilities at an employable age, as well as with the companies, to ensure that they sort of collaborate and they understand each other, and person with disability has equal opportunity to livelihood as anyone else does. So we started off with persons with vision impairment, and we moved on, and now we are working with 11 different types of disabilities. But the three main types of disability include vision impairment, deaf, and persons with physical disabilities. So the body of our work can also be explained in terms of the number of job roles that we have created, which is over 272 different job roles across 27 different sectors in about 600 companies, and which has resulted in about 4,500 plus jobs being created for disabled persons. And it's not just wage employment, it is self-employment, skilled, semi-skilled, manual, etc. So when we work with a lot of partners. Enable India has its only office here in Bangalore, in Koramangala, but we work with a lot of partners across the country. And because of our reach and engagement, we have managed to play a certain role in various levels that you see here, at the state level, at the national level, as well as at the international level. So when we work with persons with disabilities for these many years, of course it is a big challenge to get them employed or make them economically independent. But we've also realized that, despite economic independence, there are certain things which are still not being available in an easy manner for persons with disabilities. Certain basic and critical day-to-day services that they are not able to access to despite their ability to spend. And the same problem becomes complex when they're not able to spend or when they don't have that money to spend. These could be simple services like, I want to go to a movie. I want to go to a doctor. I want to go meet my friend. I want to write an exam. I want to go to a passport office to get my passport done. So it could be various such day-to-day services which, because of a type of disability, I'm not able to access or I don't have access to. So that is the problem statement with which we came to this event. And what we had in mind is when we are working with persons with disabilities, we also saw that there's also a pool of volunteers or service providers, both paid as well as on a voluntary basis, who are willing to provide that service. But they're not able to connect to the person with disability at the appropriate time, or the person with disability is not able to connect with them at the appropriate time. Somehow there's a lot of dependencies on NGOs like Enable India and several others who are working in this space for them to make that connection. So we didn't want that to happen, and we wanted it to be a mutual connection. That is a thought with which we came to this event. And through the course of these 15 days, this is what we have come out with. It's a technology solution which is basically helping a problem which the community will solve with the use of a technology. So this is an N-Care app is what we have come out with, which is a mobile Android app that will be on your cell phones, both as a service seeker, which is a person with disability, as well as a service provider, which could be anybody, a paid service provider or institutional service provider or a voluntary service provider. So when the app is there, both of them register. The service provider lists a certain set of services that he can provide amongst the standard list of services that are made available on the app. The service seeker requests for a service. Both of them are notified, and after they accept each other's proposal, they get connected through their contact information being shared, and over the app, all of this happens, and then they can make contact and the service is executed. So this is the model that we have come out with. And what we have also come out with during these 15 days is how we want to take this forward. We strongly believe that this has to be like any other app that you see in the market today, like Swiggy or Ola, Uber, this has to be a commercially driven app or a business so that it can be sustainable and innovation can be driven in this space. So, but major challenge or the risk that we see is for us to get to that space, especially persons with disabilities are involved, we want to have some sort of moderation being put in place in the initial stages so that all those risks are mitigated, and when the app is ready for commercial use, those risks are not there. So what are the risks I'm talking about? Since a person with disability is involved, and a service provider could be a person with disability or a non-disabled persons, and since the awareness about persons with disability is very minimal or negligible with disabled persons in our country, there could be a lot of issues that can arise in terms of somebody being harmed in a physical way, in an emotional way, in a medical way, or in a financial way. So for us to accommodate all these things is a phased approach that we have been able to come out with during this 15 days time, which is that we start off with a moderated journey, wherein we identify 3 or 4 NGOs, including Enable India, different parts of the country, and the registered volunteers and persons with disabilities with these organizations start using the app. Normal business will happen, services will be exchanged, voluntary services and paid services will happen, but in a moderated environment of that particular NGO. There could be funding, there could be no funding, All the commercial aspects will be there, but in a moderated environment. So that is the first phase and the second phase. And the second phase, we want to extend it beyond Android users to other operating systems, iOS, Windows, etc. And in the third phase, hopefully we would have built those checks and balances that need to be there with the use of technology itself or through other mechanisms so that we can reduce the moderation effort and then release the app with lesser moderation. And then it is available for national level commercial use. And at that stage, Enable India might just take a backseat and play as a knowledge partner where a commercial business entity can run this app. Or there could be multiple apps, and we ideally like multiple people to run these apps, multiple apps being in the place so that there's healthy competition and it leads to more innovation. In terms of service delivery, right from the start, we wanted to have both voluntary services and paid services. Because we see there's a lot of volunteers who are willing, and dedicated volunteers who are willing to give their service. And there are also people like institutional service providers and individuals who want to make money out of this. So that is something that will be inbuilt right from the day one of this particular app. And also the app that you see right now, it has an option as a service provider, whether I want my service to be paid or voluntary. So the challenges and risks that we see here is, one is the disparity that exists in terms of the number of service seekers versus the number of service providers. The service seekers are a lot more than the service providers. Second is the verification of service providers. This is the point I was making earlier. We need to have a very foolproof and a risk-mitigated system in place so that there is no mismanagement of the system or no untoward incident happens. And third is, of course, we are not very good, or we're still trying to make sense of the technology and the background that exists in terms of running such a application and all the things that are required. So that will be another challenge or a risk area for us. So the support needed, which we're trying to work through in the next 60 days of the program or beyond it, is on two fronts. One on the technologies aspect, on certain points that we have listed here. We're looking to also come up with a website, just not restrict ourselves to an Android application, local language support, offline functionality, etc. for rural areas and stuff. The connectivity might be an issue. As well as in terms of funding, we want to have a 2 or 3 member team and kickstart the work ASAP. And whatever funding that would be needed in terms of recruiting service providers, the operational costs involved. And we also expect that everything can't be done on an app. Obviously, there has to be voice support provided over and above this app. So these are the areas where we need support. And I think, and the final slide is, it has little feedback that we got when we tested this app over the last week or so with our own registered volunteers as well as some of our registered candidates, both employed and those who are waiting for jobs. These are some of the feedbacks that they provided. And any questions you may have, because that sort of finishes my part of the slides.
So I'll kick it off then. I was just wondering, is there certain areas you're going to focus on, or are you just focusing on all services to start with?
Yes, we have started with particular services like scribes for visually impaired, interpreters for hearing impaired, escort services for visually impaired. These are 2 or 3 services that we've identified at the initial level, but as we go through the phases that we have described, we'll start adding those services depending on the need that is there, as well as availability of service providers for such services.
And the second question is, have you thought about digital services? So for example, the presentation before you, rather than having a translator come, they could just access a digital service.
So we have a partial answer for that. So for example, when we look at institutional service providers, they can get connected to this particular app. So if somebody has a service that they can provide, it could be digital or it could be through an app, another app, they can get connected through this app and provide their service. Although we necessarily might not have the expertise to provide that service, or our service providers necessarily might not have the expertise to provide that service.
Okay. And overall, how many, say in the next 45 days, how many people would you expect to try and use this service?
Right, so Enable India itself has as close to about 500 registered volunteers with us, and we have about 6,000 active persons with disabilities registered with us, seeking for job or already have been employed through us. So the first year we tend to look at only Enable India uses this app with its volunteer and service provider base as well as persons with disabilities. So we look to have at least say about 10 to 15 transactions to start off with on a daily basis.
Okay, so is Enable India all of India?
I'm sorry?
Does your company cover Enable India? Does that cover all of India?
Yes, Enable India works pan-India. We are an NGO.
Okay, because that seems like quite a few people relative to the number of disabled people.
Yes, but our Enable community, which is beyond just the city of Bangalore, we have Enable community which works in different cities, and we run different programs in terms of awareness and information about disabilities to them. So that's a huge community which will also be pulled in at a later stage.
Okay, so you're just focusing on Bangalore at
yes,
the moment? Okay.
starting with Enable India in our offices.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have a question? I can keep going.
If you can just go back to your previous slides, just go back once. This is your prototype, screenshots. One is, it would be nice if you could have taken us through quick shots. One is that, even if it's a first level prototype. Second is, are you thinking of design as an aspect which is necessary for an app like this?
Obviously, like when it comes to person with disability, we have to see certain aspects on accessibility part as well. Like a visually impaired, how does he uses this app? If it comes to an hearing impaired, there should be like sign language or something kind of like pictures.
Simple English.
Simple English kind of a thing. We are also following W3 accessibility guidelines to build this application to make sure that visually impaired can.
Yeah, fine. Yeah. So that's, so it's a big challenge you have out there as per when it comes to design of this app itself. So how do you see it? Like I think the previous colleague asked, are you phasing it out in terms of levels of interaction? Because the interaction is going to be very intense, diverse out here. So the biggest challenge you have, I think, is design of the app itself. And the scale at which you're thinking about. I think scoping is going to be very important for you.
Yes,
I'm not sure how far have you thought about scoping it. And your phases will be more of design rather than your phases that you mentioned there, first level NGO. I think.
Sure, we'll definitely incorporate that feedback.
Team for Growth. Vignesh, please come on stage.
Okay, good evening everyone. My name is Vignesh. I'm here to talk about For Growth. Imagine a world where anybody from any part of the world is connected to their right livelihood options based on their abilities, not based on what they cannot do, based on their aspirations, based on their skill sets, and based on their interest. This is our vision. But to get to this vision, we were starting with one segment of target base, which we feel is completely ignored in the society. It is misunderstood, and that seems to be the persons with disability. So why persons with disability? In the ecosystem of persons with disability, which I would like to call as PWD, is that there are three major players who help them to get the livelihood options. I'm talking here only from the perspective of employment, but there is also a self-employment angle to it. So the three stakeholders here are the talents. Let me put a face to them. A student in a village, or the enablers who are the NGOs or the government entities who train them, and of course the employers who would hire them. Now the reality here is there are more than 30 million PWD talents who are ready for employment in the working population age, but they reside in rural areas. They have very little access to information, the exposure, and of course the education and skill sets. So the enablers here, the NGOs, do the heavy lifting by bringing them on board to the cities, by bringing them on board to the skill training programs, and then finally they connect to employers. We need to talk about employers here. So although not many employers are now having the exposure to how to engage PWD in part of their workforce, not everybody is active about it. So there are very little overall employment which is happening. The other angle to it is that even if the employer is ready to hire, the skillful talents are missing which they expect. So when it comes to NGOs, a hell of a lot of work has been done by them, but the overall impact so far is that they cover only the 10% of the overall talents which are available from the persons with disability sector. So we feel there are many challenges in each of these areas which supposed to be solved. So if we solve for PWD, if we solve for the disability sector, we are actually solving for the whole world. So right from day one, we think our platform is global. We are thinking to solve this in a global way. Anyway, so coming back to why now? You could have done it, much earlier, but what is something unique now happening? So as I gave you a stat, only 1% of talents are being employed from PWD sector, but there are 1 million students which are added every day into the employment. We all know that's the working age population added into the job market. There are now good regulations from government, which is like RPWD Act, and they are providing a lot of benefits where there is an incentive for employers to hire. But at the same time, the existing mainstream job portals are not accessible at all. One, they are not accessible from accessing the information. Two, these are not mapped to the reasonable accommodation requirements of PWD. Also, there are a lot of interest now from the players like Jio and Airtel who want to tap into the rural segment by providing the network. And of course, WhatsApp and Facebook messengers are not just unique to urban areas. A lot of people from rural areas are using it. So we feel this is the right way or the right time to do a solution which would solve the problem. So what it would be, we want to do it in an integrated platform where the data plays a major role in solving all the challenges what we highlighted earlier. So as I said, they use a lot of SMS, WhatsApp, and Facebook Messenger, which we would use as a channel to provide smart recommendations. When I say smart recommendations, these are very personalized to each individual, where their interests are mapped to the opportunities which are available, where their interests are mapped to the trainings which are available. And our important point here is that granular profile which we create, which seems to be missing piece in the ecosystem which is catered by NGOs and the government entities. Also, the assessment piece, which are completely made for a non-PWD segment, that assessments are not accessible to them. The mainstream opportunities are not mapped to the right job roles. We want to do that as well. So what is the secret sauce here? We focus on the local language to connect to the masses. We are now onboarding NGOs as a network to get the data from the multiple stakeholders. As I said, we focus a lot on the data to provide smart recommendations in their own native language. We provide a career assistant using the power of AI. And we think AI, the power of ML, is not being used from the inclusion perspective, which is what is going to be our major secret sauce here. So having said that, we want to do it as a global platform, which is self-sustainable. We discovered 4 possible opportunities, but the major chunk which is going to be focused is going to be from the placement. So employers are looking for data of talents which are exactly matching to their requirements. We being a data engine, we can provide smart matches to them. Of course, when we know what kind of talents are there and where there is an intervention required, we would connect to the right trainers to them. Now that the employers are grooming up for hiring PWDs, there's a lot of workplace solution which is required, which is a B2B segment where we think there's a lot of role we can play there by connecting to the right people. And finally, when we have a granular profile about each individual, we can connect to the right service providers and product vendors. So let's say a person who is having a hearing ability can be connected to the right interpreter. He could be connected to the product vendor who sells a hearing aid. So it's, with a lot of data, we can do a smart matching. And there is a commerce around it. So what is our go-to-market strategy? We want to focus from the grassroots level. There's a lot of data which is available in schools and colleges. I'm talking here from the perspective of PWD, which we want to tap to and provide to create the granular profile. We are already trying to work with the active employers who are already hiring, but who want to expand to different cities which are not served by the NGOs whom they are working with. So we would act like an expansion for them. We want to work with organizations like Geo and Airtel. Because we are a web app, anyway, I'll come to that. We can onboard to the existing platforms which we can leverage. And as I said, the NGO network is going to provide the data for us. Yeah, so quickly into the competition. So, I mean, there are a great set of NGOs who are doing very well, but they have very basic data which they use for the effect. And some people focus only on the entry-level career. The mainstream opportunities are completely ignored for them, which is where we want to really play. So what we have done so far, we have created a multilingual platform, discovery and messaging platform. We are also connected to one of the largest employer in Bangalore who has more than 1,000 PWD working for them. So we got a lot of insights from them. We actually tested with quite a few employers who came from rural Tamil Nadu and settled down in Bangalore. So we took a lot of insights to design the platform, what they look at it. I mean, just to give it one single insight, before they get into any jobs, they don't look at the skills or the interests, they look at the accommodation. So for them, the accommodation is the key insight before they get into any kind of selection. So we incorporated that, which is completely missing in any mainstream portal. So just to give a highlight of what it is. So this works both in English as well as in Kannada. We would obviously expand to all the languages in India and globally for that matter. So we talk about, so I'll may not. So as I said, the resources is the key part here. The accessible requirements or the reasonable accommodation, they call it in the industry. So it has an inbuilt messaging platform, which you can do it in any language. This is how it works in mobile. I'm just giving a screenshot here. I can show. But why yes? So I'm running already a successful, profitable startup. We have been funded by DST for our innovation point. We also have, I have an extensive experience in the product development. I helped more than 20 startups, in their, okay. Anyway, so this is our plan for the next 3 years. We want to focus on the NGO network, place 500 talents, understand the game and the system completely. Then we get into the complete full recommendation platform through the AI. And then we want to onboard these service and product vendors, which will complete the circle of what we're trying to achieve. Oh, thanks a lot. Any questions?
I guess you're already live?
Testing.
You're testing at this point, okay.
It's live in the sense you can check it out, but yeah, it's testing.
And you would be charging the employer for per placement?
Yeah, that is one of the models, yeah.
And what are the other models?
So as I said, there are 3 models. One would be the lead, what we give to the trainers or the NGOs who want to have a specific talents for their intervention or for their work. So a training company, a mainstream training company, let's say an IIT, want to focus on a software training for a particular set of people. Sure. We would act like a lead engine for them. So that's one of the revenue streams. Of course, as I said, we can also be a revenue stream for the product and service vendors down the line once we have the granular profile of each individuals. Okay. And of course, the workplace solutions, it's completely a B2B segment where you can enable the employers or improve their readiness, basically, before they hire.
One of the slides had a stat which said, there is 1 million working population getting added every month.
Yeah, that's true. That's
what is the connection with that and the PWD?
Yeah, so yeah, I'll come to. So anyway, so the point here is the workforce requirements is a major problem, and as a whole, not PWD alone, as a whole, and where PWD is completely ignored, they have only 1% of representation. So there's a hell lot of gap to be filled, and there is no. The impact what is created right now with the existing stakeholders is very minimal. There is a gap to be filled, which is what we want to play a role.
The whole thing obviously feels like a technology play. Now, if I tie it back to one of Shakti's comments, which is a lot of the actual challenge that we're really facing is around the mindset. And if you take something, a place like Bangalore, BPO, tech heavy, etc., how do you plan to address the whole mindset issue with the employers? Because what they really want is a comfortable process where their HR wants to go to the campuses they go, bring in the 1,000 undergrads, etc. While from an employer perspective, how do you plan to address the mindset issue and the the logistics, etc. from an employer's perspective?
True. It's taking time, so I'll anyway answer you. So the idea here is apart from the entry-level jobs which has been created, there are quite a few segments which, one from the perspective of their abilities can be filled. Like people who have skills, who have gone through colleges, have never been considered as an option by employers, primarily because the sensitivity is not to them. So that is why we create this B2B offering, which is to enable them to create a business case for them. Why would you look at it? So we create a business case for each of these employers where...
And a business case would be what?
The business case would be, hey, a person who has been, even with disability, he or she has gone to a certain position in terms of the skills.
Okay.
And so on par with the normal person who is not without any disabilities, or physical disabilities, is actually one step above in terms of going through all these pains and being there. Okay. So that itself proves that one, he or she is equal on par with skills, but it also been, he or she has gone through the barriers to reach there. Mm-hmm. So that kind of provide a strong point about an individual when they actually have to do a apple-to-apple comparison. Okay. So also from the perspective of service industries, there is a behavioral pattern which has been seen that people with disabilities who wants to get into a particular role, they come to an organization with a community kind of an angle. They want to be there, improve there. So there is the attrition level from that perspective seems to be very less when you actually engage people with disability because they kind of create a community around their set of people, rather the normal people who try to jump away whenever there is an opportunity comes up. So from a growth perspective, from an organizational growth, there is a real business case here to recruit PWD. One, not as in a sympathy, but in terms of skill, as well as from the perspective of organizational strength being grown or strengthened, actually.
And second question, so if you had to pick one place to really develop your proof of concept, I mean, where would you pick as a city, a location, or an industry?
So I'm anyway going to work in Bangalore. I mean, this is my plan anyway, is that because for two reasons. One, there is a tech-savvy kind of attitude from the employer side here. And there are a lot of people who are migrating from different cities to come here. So it kind of fits to the real use case here where I can understand whether the tech really plays a role here. If I go to some other city or tier 2 town, it may not be really relevant because employers may not be ready to actually give me real inputs. So once we prove here, we can actually grow to the tier 2 and other places.
I had a quick question about your team. Is it just you?
It's primarily me. We've been mentored by quite a few experts. So there are a bunch of partners or experts who are helping us out. It's primarily me. It's from the tech angle, yeah.
Okay. And so over the next 45 days, would that team grow, or would it's simply you?
It has to grow because I'm in a position where there are a lot of operations that are involved. Tech can play a role, but more than that, there is a lot of human connections required here. So in fact, what I showed as a messaging platform, the initial days are going to be powered by human because we need to understand the psyche of each of the individuals who are talking to us before we can customize. So there is definitely going to be recruitment. I'm saying team to be grown.
Okay, so if you had to pick two positions you would fill, what would they be?
So one would be the customer engagement manager who understands the morale, how the people connect. Two would be completely into the HR side of employer side, who would give us the insights of what the employer would look for before we do the engagement.
Okay, and just quickly looking ahead, you said it's going to be a global, you opened with this as a global business. Yes. So when, how far into the future would you expect this global side of it to take off?
I would say in 2 to 3 years, we should be in I would say, a decent position to, at least when I say global, it may not be European or American countries, but it could be within Asia. We can go to Indonesia, we can go to Bangladesh, where the environment or the needs are very similar.
So, Vignesh, one of the comments that I have is you're talking about real data here.
Sorry, real data.
Right? And data for people with disability in India was last taken in 2011.
Yeah.
Right? How is that you want to really? So I've been in this field for about 6 years into disability and inclusion and hiring. I know when it comes to data, it's like a real big struggle to map the data and scaling, right? So what is the groundwork that you do to enable your business model?
So two things. One, we are going to the ground level from these schools and colleges, because that is where people drop out, or that is where the skills are started. So if we can do the intervention, if we can capture the data from there, that plays a critical role in establishing a communication with them, bring them on board to the platform, and grow and connect to the right opportunities in terms of training, skilling, as well as employment. So that would be our long-term kind of strategy. But also we are working closely with all the NGOs who are already in the game, who are doing it, but not capturing the whole of the data. So we work with them with whatever data they have, then work backwards to collect granular details which is needed for smart matchmaking. Because we can't grow from day one with zero data and get on immediately. So we're working two strategies. One is a short-term strategy, which is working with the people who are already having a little bit of data which can be improved, which can be filled upon. The other is a long-term strategy of going to the ground and get it from. I mean, of course, there are a lot of touch points like government. I mean, in the case of southern states, at least I know that people get pensions where they go every month to collector office or taluk office to collect money. So that is one touch point where a lot of data is being emerged. In fact, I talked to the rural PWD. He was giving me a lot of insights that a lot of WhatsApp groups which have been created in an organic way, which are completely untapped, which would act like I would say, an engine for us to discover these talents and onboard it to our platform. So it's going to be a mix of strategy. I don't think one single strategy will give us the real data.
And when you want to sell something like this to a corporate, right? When you have like a base data that is available, and when you want to come to a corporate, what would be your strategy there? How would you kind of go around the business model for a corporate, and how would you run it for an NGO for pulling in the data, right? Because this is a need of the hour. Every across India right now, disability empowerment is like a big thing, right? So how would it empower, say, a corporate or a NGO when you're working?
Okay, so for NGO, as I said, there's only 10% impact created so far, although the number is very huge to be bridged. So definitely they are looking for people to impact. So the data from the ground level is missing. So not all NGOs are empowered with technology as well. So there is no one universal database. Each NGOs work with a siloed database of wherever the districts which they play with, maybe the rural areas they work with. So we act like one universal platform for them to get into a granular detail of what kind of area they want to work. And we provide that platform from a data angle. That is one thing. That is one reason they want to play with us, because the amount of data we provide will not be accessible easily for them if they have to do it from scratch. That is one reason. The other reason would be we do a cross-matching because of the granular data which we can create, because of the algorithm which can power us to do that. So I can provide a real-time insights about a particular thing for an individual. Let's say a person is looking for a job which is going to be in 1 month's time. There is a skill gap which is available. Can be immediately bridged with a training opportunity which is happening in the town or in the city. Or we can bring in experts directly connecting to them. It's all possible only with the data. Coming back to the B2B part, B2B has two angles. One is, as I said, the workplace solution perspective, where we make them, we help them to be ready for recruitment in terms of process, infrastructure, and policies, which we would do it along with the partners. Of course, we can't do it for everybody, but we would tie up with the existing partners. Having said that, we also are going to help them to directly connect with people who have expert skills, not the entry-level talents.
Hi, I'm Megha Sharma Bhagat from Project Defy, where we stand for Design Education for Yourself. We have been in the space of community-built models for empowerment of marginalized communities for the past 2.5 years. Really been working with communities in refugee camps, in mining communities, in farming communities for 2.5 years, and wanted to give you a quick snapshot of what it is that we do in that work.
First few days, I just sat in one place and I just start watching what does other people do.
ನಮ್ಮ ಮನೆ ಪಕ್ಕದ ಮನೆ ಹುಡುಗಿ ನನ್ನ ತಂದೆಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಊರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಶುರು ಆಗಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು.
I always wanted to learn how does things work. I also wanted to help people.
ಆ ಸ್ಥಳಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನು ಹೋದೆ. ಆ ಸ್ಥಳ ಬೇರೆ ಕಂಪ್ಯೂಟರ್ ಕ್ಲಾಸಸ್ಗಿಂತಲೂ ವಿಭಿನ್ನವಾಗಿತ್ತು.
I seen that one boy working on a boat and I felt that it is not so good. I get some old junk and a lampshade from my home to make my own boat.
ನಾನು ಪ್ರಾಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದೆ. ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಆ ವಿಷಯದ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿಗೆ ತಿಳಿದುಕೊಂಡೆ.
I realized that I don't know how will the boat work. So I asked my questions in Google and I found some YouTube tutorials.
ಇಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ಬಂದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಶಿಕ್ಷಕರಿಲ್ಲ, ನಾವೇ ಕಲಿತು ನಾವೇ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ.
If I still had any questions or any doubts, I just asked people around me. Finally, I learned how will the boat work.
ಇಮೇಲ್ನ ಕಲಿತೆ, ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಾನ ಕಲಿತೆ.
Till now, I have made electronic rowing boat which can be controlled from my phone.
ಈಗ ಜ್ಯುವೆಲರಿ ಹೇಗೆ ಮಾಡೋದು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಕಲಿತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ.
And also the taser which can be used for women's safety and also the single propeller glider.
This is really what Project Defy is.
Nook has been derived from a Devanagari word called Nukkad, which means safe spots in villages, where villagers would gather at the end of the day talking about their everyday things and be able to vent. At Defy, we have taken the same concept and started learning spaces where a learner can enter and learn through collaboration. Taking the power of internet and peer learning, we have created a model where anybody can use their imagination and express themselves through projects that they do at the Nooks. The underlying premise of Defy with the Nooks is to democratize education and to take the power of learning into the hands of people. That is something that we've been doing for 2.5 years. We have worked with over 2,500 people directly and in 6 locations in India and Africa. We entered EM2 now wanting to understand what would it mean to use the same model to create what we call is community organized design for inclusion, especially keeping in mind that every resource that you look up throws up these numbers for which the solutioning pretty much is happening top-bottom and not bottoms-up approach. So looking at that cycle, we wanted to test how can we, through the community-based model, change that dynamics. We tested this asking this question: how can communities design inclusive spaces to capacitate access to rights and empowerment? And what we came out with really was a process map, a process innovation map that we have also tried to test in 15 days at a small village on the outskirts of Bangalore called Kaglipura, where also our community space runs in that village. And if you look at this, I'll just quickly run through you this and you can actually see a lot of videos after this. So we tested what community mapping really looks like when you involve the community existing in the village and do not come from outside as subject matter experts. We moved on to see how do people really appreciate the idea of a community space, what do they mean by, what do they think about it by bringing them in, and how do people around them really acknowledge and start understanding why should they be coming to community spaces. We went into co-problem identification. So this really meant that people who had not been exposed to disabled people, people who knew they were neighbors or somebody who were lying there, what did it mean for them to talk about problems together, and then iterative solution finding. Community mapping.
ಟೀಚರ್ ಇವ್ರು ಓದ್ತಾವ್ರಲ್ಲ ಓದೋದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಏನು ತಿಳಿಸ್ಬೇಕು. ಸೊ ಇವ್ರಿಗೆ ಓದೋದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವು ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಏನು
ಆಗ್ತದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರು ಏನಿಲ್ಲ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಊಟಕ್ಕೆ ಪಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಊಟಕ್ಕಷ್ಟೇ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ ಅವರೇ ಮಾಡೋದು ಊಟ ಒಂದು ಹಾಕ್ತಾರೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಓಡಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಕಾಲು ನೋವು ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ತಿರುಗಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಕಾಲು ನೋವು ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಕುತ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರೆ ಏನು ಅನ್ಸಲ್ಲ. ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಕುತ್ಕೊಂಡು ಓಡಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಏನು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಓಡಾಡಲ್ಲ, ಕುಂತಲ್ಲೇ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಓಡಾಡಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ.
So
we were speaking to her, and she doesn't have a bus pass, she doesn't have any of that. And the big reason is the way the road is constructed, if you notice. So for mobility, disabled people, this is going to be a huge challenge of how are they going to access any community space.
ಏನಾದರೂ ಅವ್ರ ಜೀವನಕ್ಕಾಗೋ ಥರ ಉಪಯೋಗ ಆಗೋ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಏನು ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟ್ ಇರುತ್ತೋ ಅದನ್ನ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ನಾವು ಯೂಟ್ಯೂಬ್ನ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಕಲಿಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ.
This process was tested in the field, and what we really did find out from this was perception finding, which is very critical in terms of how are we going to create solutions for them. Second, what do community spaces, in this particular space, of course, the Nook we run, but what do community spaces really mean for them, and a combined understanding of that in the village, and then identifying people with disabilities and really putting on the hat and the thinking glass of disabilities that they may not think they can see, disabilities that they've not really thought of. And that was something that we brought out as key figures in community mapping. Building personas of people with disabilities, their families, and also sensitizing users of the Nook, which in the larger context of the community spaces really towards what disabilities really mean or look like. Introduction to the Nook in this case. Okay, so what we pretty much have found out is that with this, moving into this, we could quickly move into what is a combined understanding of communities' understanding of disabilities, what will solutions look like. And what we've tested in 15 days is that at a Nook right now, there is already iterative solution finding happening. There are prototypes being built by the Nook users for the people with disability who are already accessing the space. We have about 10 PWDs in the village that are accessing the space, and we have users from the space developing solutions for learning and for accessibility, both at the space. What we really look at as a roadmap is that we want to be able to stabilize this process, and we want to be able to make sure that we can create a replicable process that is useful, that we can also give out to other communities. We want to test this in 3 states in India right now, and then we also want to be able to bring in people to help us create M&E metrics. In the next phase, we would want to expand to 6 more states, and we would definitely want to conduct a first M&E, and what we're really looking at is then modularizing it so we can work with the CBR community at the India level to give them this as a module. And of course, at scale, we really think this is the only model that can actually bring about the realization of the first article of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals, that really look at completely creating an equal world, and that would be our vision for 2030.
So, from an operational front, in the community space, learning space,
yes,
what's the constitution? You have a facilitator?
So our community spaces are completely owned by them. So there is a community manager, but that person is chosen by them and pretty much acts just like an admin, has absolutely no say in what will happen there. Those are completely self-governed decisions taken by all the users there. In fact, our community manager is here from the same Nook.
So you have one Nook, the one which you talked about?
Where we tested this.
That's the one you have.
Yes.
And how long have you been running that Nook?
The space where we are, we've been here for about 1.5 years.
1.5 years, and how many people from the PWDs are using that?
Currently, we have about 9 to 10 people that are coming in now.
Okay.
Facilitated that, yes.
Who defines outcome for them? Because if you...
They define outcomes for them. So the beauty of this model has been for us that once you take away hierarchies, once you take away the institutional model of defining outcomes for them, they're pretty well, amazingly clear on what outcomes will mean for them. And we have seen them, and we've seen that work. We've seen that work with our learners who had been school dropouts, who had to leave their well-paying good jobs, at least in the cities, because they have to come back for family reasons. These were communities that were getting marginalized. We have seen them come in, use the facility, and have been able to create outcomes which have meant a lot of different things. We have women who set up entrepreneurial ventures. We have students, dropout students who've gone on to become Ashoka Youth Venturers. We have seen young adults go on to, who had first dropped out of college, go back to college education, because over here, we do not define the outcomes for them.
I'm just trying to understand what motivates them to, I understand it's self-governed, that's great. But
Sure.
What motivates them to come back? How
The
do they
power of choice. The power of choice, where you actually do not define for a community what should they be doing, is what motivates them. And we have seen that, we have now seen that, see that work in 6 places where we are currently. And we are seeing that work beautifully, especially because what we miss out when we do a top-bottom approach is that fundamentally nobody's connecting to the problem with them in the community and what is it that's stopping them from doing it. Our understanding of what is their problem is very different than what they understand their problem is. So our NOOCs do not curate contents, do not create content, and definitely do not bring about like a 1-year skilling program, any of that. And yet we see them pick up their own learning outcomes, we see them finish those outcomes and actually create ambitious and aspirational goalposts. Therefore, if we get away from the charity model of defining for marginalized communities, what should they be doing?
How do NOOCs sustain themselves?
Currently, the NOOCs right now are the lowest such running model anywhere in the world. They run at under a cost of $500, a complete operational cost of a small space. The Kaglipura NOOC is almost reaching self-sustainability, where the users are putting back money in. We have 2 other NOOCs that run under our operation cost, for which we fundraise through partnerships, and 3 more which we have completely done as a service delivery model with partners on ground.
So to scale up NOOCs,
yep.
And assuming you want to get to 50 or 100
yes.
or whatever,
yes.
What is the core IP in your mind?
It will be the whole idea, or the IP, that the knowledge that we've really created, which we do work with partners on, is around what does self-learning and self-governance, creation of that culture mean. And we've kind of done, that's the IP that we actually use also. The 3 that we've already created with partners, we've tested it and validated it there. That's a 4-week program, or we call it an induction program, that we run there. And that creates the NOOC culture that then self-sustains itself.
So your intervention is usually 4 weeks long?
4 weeks on the ground and 8 weeks
away.
Virtually.
Okay, so you
yes.
kind of go away, then you do remote management?
That is always the plan, that
okay.
we will never ever stay in the community.
Okay.
The community should not need us after those 4 weeks.
Then do you do any quarterly, semi-annual assessments of the progress of the NOOC? Or how
yes.
do you do
yes.
a kind of quality?
So we what we do leave them back when we move out are 3 tools. One is the self-governing tool. Second is reporting tools, okay. where we kind of sit with them actually and create what will monthly outcomes look like for them, or what do they want to assess for themselves. And of course, budgeting. So we leave them with these tools, and they do send back data to us with that.
Okay, so I just wondered, in terms of the outcomes that people at the NOOC that you've tried this at with
yes.
people with disabilities, what were the kind of outcomes that they said with relation to inclusion and accessibility?
Sure. So there were 2-3 things that came out of this. One was the identification of the whole idea that accessibility in the village in itself has stopped people with disabilities from going anywhere. So they've identified that, and now they are in the next process of figuring out of how are they going to solve that. And that's led to some kind of prototype ideas that have come around, whether it is redoing the regular walking cane, or whether it is really re-looking at how the person with disability with polio is really using her means of walking. So there are prototypes that we are seeing come out. One is that. 2 is, very interestingly, that the users have started thinking of, if they cannot come here, what would it mean to take learning to them? And therefore, that's another emerging idea that has come out. And 3 is, for the community as a whole, what would it mean to take care of the caretakers who are with the PWDs?
Hello everyone, I am Hani from Torchit. Around millions of people on the earth who are lost their confidence because they can't visualize their surroundings. Due to this, they can't walk independently, and they are very nervous. They are very independent on other to walk with them. So here we are these are the solutions available in market, SmartKey and Sarthi K sonars. But these are the only sonar ecos which will help them to navigate, it will say only what is the obstacle nearby. Their current requirements are, they are using every possible, they are using mobiles, screens with the voiceovers, they are using refreshable braille for their learning, but they require more in mobility. They require affordable and easy to use solution to add on their mobility devices so they can move with more confidence and with more with independence. Our solution is Jyoti. In Jyoti, we are adding a SOS button. If a visually impaired person is in unwanted situation or lost, they can just press a button and it will send a message to 5 people, to their well-wishers. Another is video calling. Video calling we are providing with a camera module and network 3G module. So they can't need a physical person, they didn't need a physical person to help them. A virtual person of, they can get a real-time help from their volunteers. Also, we are providing an image recognition if what is the obstacle nearby. If it is a human, animal, or a wall, it can identify. Also, we are providing a horizontal, what is the knee above obstacles and what is the ground below obstacles, say pothole or a step, with highly battery backup or 15 days battery backup. And this is the hardware solution, not application, because only 2 to 3% in India visually impaired people are using smartphones. So we are making an affordable hardware solution which will add their mobility device and they can walk independently. Yeah, this is just our research. We have designed and U-oriented design discussed with end user itself, and we are designing such a way so we are not only helping visually impaired people, but we are also empowering them in Torchit. This device can be assembled and training done by and service to be done by visually impaired people. Around 285 WHO 2012 census, around 285 million visually impaired people on the globe. Out of them are 71 million is totally blindness. 15 million are from India only. So out of 10, 2 visually impaired people are Indians. And blindness comes majorly from cataract, and cataracts come after age of 40 or 50. So our end user group is mostly on old age. So they required a very simple device which will help them. So that's why we are making that much advanced device in a very simple way. Our business model, we are partners with NGOs, social organizations and blind associations to promote our device, and our delivery channel should be social events or NGOs, e-commerce. Our customer segments are end users, end user donors, NGOs, CSR and government. Yeah, this is our revenue stream. We are selling our product. This is the only one revenue stream, and also we are going to ADIP scheme, a government scheme, so we can generate another revenue stream for our device. Till we launched our first product, Sarthi, on 12th of October, and today we have more than 1500 pieces ordered, and they are all around 300 plus people are using in Gujarat, Ahmedabad itself. And we are upgrading our product with a GPS SOS button in February 2018. Also, we are trying to add a virtual cane which will identify the ground level obstacles, a pothole or steps in October 2018. Camera and video editing function we are launching on 2019. Yeah. These are the accolades for this Sarthi, which will endorsement on Sarthi from a Blind People Association Ahmedabad and National Association for Blind Bombay. Bhaskar Bhai Mehta, who is the NAB president across India, and Bhushan Purani, who is the executive secretary of Blind People Association. Those endorsement on Sarthi. We are not only creating these products, Sarthi or Jyoti, we are creating a platform to make their life much easier and much independent. Have a colorful day.
Sarthi or Jyoti?
This is the Sarthi and next one is Jyoti. Yeah.
And this video conferencing solution,
yeah.
So how do you integrate that into this?
Here we are adding a camera.
Okay.
So a person, if in an emergency situation, they didn't a person, physically person is not available there. So he or she can just press the button, and the volunteer from any outside the environment, he can guide 3 steps ahead. There is a stairs and all this. We have done prototype.
Understood.
Yeah.
Got it. How much do you charge per piece?
Less than $100. For advanced Jyoti, this is only for $25.
So this is your version 2, right?
This is the version 1 and Jyoti is version 2.
Version 2.
Yes.
So in terms of all those components you said,
yes.
Was it all based on feedback from the users of this version?
Yeah.
So the way you decided whether you wanted to add a camera, all of those
yes,
things?
100%.
Okay.
And as I saw, there are lot of our end users are old age.
Okay.
So they can't use advanced one. So
Okay.
we come up with a very simple solution, Sarthi.
Okay.
So everyone can use that.
Okay.
Also it is just $25.
Okay.
In Indian rupees around 1500.
Mhm.
For advanced users like people who are working employees, visually impaired people are employees, so they go outside their homes, so they need advanced than Sarthi.
Okay.
So we have come up with advanced one.
So it's going to be 2 models at two different price points.
Jyoti is having 3 different variants.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even that will have 3 different price points.
3 different products.
And where are you currently manufacturing this?
In Ahmedabad only.
Only.
We have teams of around 15 people, and we
Okay.
have 3 visually impaired people in our team who are assembling Sarthi.
Okay. So when you scale up, is your plan to again keep the manufacturing there, or do you plan to sort of source it from different places?
No, production in-house basically, completely in-house, because we are trying to empowering visually impaired people. So totally production in-house.
Okay. Thank you.
So are you going to eliminate the cane completely?
No, we are not eliminate the cane. We are providing an add-on for the cane.
So this gets fixed onto the cane?
Yeah, this can fit on any cane.
Okay.
Not my cane or not Karnataka cane, any cane from world.
Okay.
Yeah, this is designed such a way.
Okay, and the second product that you have?
Also, it can be attached on cane.
Have you roughly worked out the form factor?
Yes.
Is it going to fit into the same?
This is look like a same.
Entire
mostly look
hardware
like a
will
same.
fit into the same.
Yeah. So also it can be a virtual cane also can be attached on the cane. So there is 2 modes. Mode 1 is only this when they are using cane, and mode 2 is a vertical sensor when they are not using canes. Because mostly they are not using canes because of some social issue and
So what is the range that you cover in this?
Yeah. In Sarthi, there are 3 ranges: 2 feet, 4 feet, 8 feet. Same in Jyoti.
What about height?
Height knee about 2 head.
2 head.
Yeah, up to head, more than 1 feet of head. So it can cut the collapsing with obstacle, your head. Yeah. Yeah, with the Android Samsung charger, and if you charge once, it will extend for 15 days.
You must be aware that a lot of people are working on such products. No?
Yeah, but
Even
they
big
can't meet
companies
the
like-
accuracy. This is the 99.7%. We have filed 2 patents on it.
Okay. Because people like Honeywell, everybody's working on
Yeah.
this, no?
That's why we got orders of 1,500 in just 2 months. 12th October in 2017 we launched, and we got orders of more than 1,500 pieces.
Can I just add that's a very good point you brought up. What's the competition you have for this product, and how much do they charge for this?
Yeah, SmartCan, IIT Delhi, for Sarthi competitors, SmartCan is more than $100, say example 5,000 Indian rupees. And another is the K-Sonar. K-Sonar is a British technology having $650 across 42,000 Indian rupees. K-Sonar didn't come India because of very high price. SmartCan comes with the face of our Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. People bought, but they can't use because it is not much accurate.
So just to go back, there's two products. The first product is what you're holding.
Yes.
And that is ultrasound based.
This is sonar
based. Sonar based. And then the next one will have a camera.
A camera with a
sonar. That's the different product.
Yeah.
That's Jyoti.
Yeah, Jyoti.
And Jyoti has 3 levels of product, or so how?
Yeah, Jyoti having a 3 levels of product. One is with SOS.
Okay.
Sarthi with SOS. Another one is image recognition. Third one is video calling.
Okay.
A virtual can as well.
Okay. Yeah. And the cost, the $100, is for all of that, or for?
All 4 of that, not more than $100.
Okay.
Indian rupees is around 5,000 to 6,000 rupees.
And I want to ask the same question as you. Have you, so the form factor?
Yeah, this is look like the same only.
This
is
the same?
The 7th iteration of Sarthi, and this is the highly adaptable ergonomic device.
Why did you choose a different name? Why have 2
Because
names?
it is the advanced. Like Jyoti in India, it means like light.
Okay.
We are providing light to them.
Okay.
So one more question.
Yes.
So currently your team is just you, right?
No, we have 15 people.
No. You're the only entrepreneur, right? Yeah. So if you had to find a co-founder,
yes,
what would you look for in that person?
Yeah, I am an engineer, just passed out September this year. I am looking for a co-founder, yeah.
No, but I'm asking what would you look for in that co-founder?
Marketing, having a background in marketing. You see, I am not a marketing person.
Okay. Anything else? Only just marketing?
Marketing, yeah, and only marketing.
Only marketing.
Yeah. I am good in execution, how to execute this.
Okay.
But I need
so you
execute this. Yeah, marketing.
So you're saying you're a hardcore engineer,
yeah,
but you want somebody else who will be good at marketing.
Marketing, yeah.
Okay.
So before I invite Team TriDots, their prototype is outside. So if you haven't already seen it, you can go after this session and take a look at it. TriDots.
Good evening, one and all. So we are Team TriDots. I would like to introduce Shakti and Jaga. So I'll be doing the presentation now. So yeah, we'll get started. So our background, just a little about our background. So we are a group, a startup. It's called Enability Foundation, incubated by IIT Madras, and we currently are having about 12 assistive devices currently under development. We are a year old. 3 of them are already in beta stage of testing, focusing on education, livelihood, and recreation and communication. So that is a little apart, but what we are here, Team TriDots, basically is looking at mobility. So, basically, there's a small snippet of what I'm going to talk about from the user, and I wanted to include the users I have taken this information from. So that video basically represents that. And the main aspect of when we talked about mobility, maybe work or just going out for someone, for a person with disability, what is the constraints? We were asking them what are the constraints, what are the things you will have to look at, what do they look, what do they don't look. And some of the aspects was assistance required. So it was not only person with wheelchair, but also goes a little beyond where they are looking at assistance and unreliable transportation. Mass transportation is kind of unreliable. Geographical limitations with aggregators like cabs, metros, then going into beyond the solution. Even if they get on all the solution and get to a two-wheeler, it's altered. It's not built for what they are using. It is built for something else and they modify it. So generally those engineerings are quite crude, not tested well. Stability is an issue. Like Manzoor had earlier pointed out that there has been quite a lot of accidents, and if the engineering even slightly misses, it's going to be done. And these basically you are handing over to a mechanic. They are handing over their two-wheeler, newly bought two-wheeler, to a mechanic to make it reliable, which the companies are not currently doing. So we have set out this as our main problem statement, and to look at, ideally we would look at the whole two-wheeler segments. It's currently about 50 million numbers a year, growing at a 10%. Ideally that will be our target market, but to start with, we are looking at a smaller portion, wherein a person with locomotor disability, and so the primary segment or the primary target for our first product will be specific, little more specific than the 6 million, which will be wheelchair users who have a good upper body control. And statistically speaking, there's about 80% of them are in the below low income group, and 60 to 65% there are about the age of 20 to 50, which is the potential age where they would want to go out and work. They want to be potentially participating in the social aspect of life, and 36% are currently employed, maybe are early adopters. So, so we boiled down everything, focusing slightly on mobility, and to see what can a mobility solution look like for them. And the core value proposition, we said we will build a product basically that is accessible, affordable, and gives them the freedom and spirit of adventure. That's unique, to build a DNA, to build some uniqueness in that product, which basically transfers all these aspects, and finally getting into expressing what they are as persons, people inside, is what we tried doing. And we present to you Yali. The name is derived from a mythological creature, which basically embodies a lion and a face of a elephant. And we are taking those two combinations, safety and speed, into our product with some features which is integrated into it. A great suspension, basically to avoid roll. Biggest problem with three-wheelers, roll, which we are trying to work on, and getting on more aspects of stylish outer body, and then ability to be at par with the IoT technology which is currently in market. Looking at able to get the wheelchair in and out extremely quick, easy, and to be able to have as much as automation as possible. This product we are envisioning is electric, which is also in line with what the government is also moving towards. Even though electric charging will be a challenge, I think the government is ready to solve that for us. And the second aspect, what we thought this product should have, and it is really cool, we're still working on the engineering part of it, is a pillion seat. I think this whole concept of taking along someone, going out with someone, is inert with every one of us. And that should be the spirit of a vehicle or a transportation system which is currently available. So we are looking at a pillion seat. Can be used for cargo if it provides you livelihood. Can work with different options. So, so like I said, Yali and safety and speed. So moving a little away from the product, I'm going to really talk about where we have come from. We've come from a concept design to a minimum viable prototype which is standing just outside, and we are quite far away from the complete product. So there's two segments to it. One is what I'm going to do for the 45-day mark, and what is the life cycle of the whole product. So I'll touch upon little on both, but the essence of it will be all this. This will be the essence: the functional design, manufacturability, technical testing, safety, aesthetics, user stability, ergonomics. Will be the same aspect. The fundamental will be same, but in terms of the refinement will be more as we go on towards the final product from the 45-day mark. So for the future of the products, I am actually pitching with both Enable Makeathon and also outside to raise a seed of about 80 lakhs, which will support me for 2 years. And to build the whole product. So this is about 2 years of work we will need. So we will go from currently this concept to a test stage where we will be releasing it for beta testing to a couple of users. So that will be then. This does not include any scaling, any marketing, no strategy, business strategy that which we'll be building. But this price is only for basically building the beta stage, to go get until the beta stage for us. So just apart from all this, it was a great day when we almost finished our work in APD. And just I was showing our product to few of them in APD. We made a sale. And one, Mr. Manzoor, said, I will take this when it is ready. So we've made our first sale, but yeah, the physical has to happen. But we've shook hands and said, we're going to do that. And after that, this is exactly how I felt. Thank you.
Okay, one I'd like to know is, what's the positioning going to be?
What is the?
Positioning. Have you thought of positioning? You know the Maruti's, no. You know the Nano story, right?
Yes,
Nano
yes.
Story, yeah.
So in terms of how I'm going to position my vehicle, or how I'm going to look at, there's a manufacturability area and there's a marketing area.
Manufacturability is, yeah. Manufacturing is okay. Today it can be made. Positioning.
So there's no, I've not done any real deep research on how I'm going to position it, but there's a couple of ideas which I'll share. So we are looking at partnering, basically partnering. And I kind of think I'll follow the Aether model. If you're familiar with the Bangalore, IIT Madras-based startup company Aether, we have a good ties with them. I will basically try to basically lug around with them. So that is something I've thought about. We've just initiated conversations. But to start, there are some bootstrapping methodologies also which I am trying to work on. Where
no.
Okay.
No. I am not looking at the funding part and all that.
No. I'm talking about the marketing part of it.
How you plan to position your product? Where is it going to be positioned?
In terms,
see, you're in the area of automobile.
Okay.
Automotive. Understandable. Disability.
Yes.
That's understandable. But you're moving into a space of automotive.
Yes, very much.
Where there's a huge competition. There's a different, people come with a different thing to it, right? So how have you thought about it? The ecosystem as to how you want to...
Yeah. Ideally, mine is, I would like to have a position of accessible scooters where I would like to position.
I'm coming that is in your...
Yes. No, ideally I said. Ideally, I would like to have that as my market or that as my position. But it is an electric scooter. I'm going to be positioning myself in an electric scooter space.
Then just another question of mine is, have you considered or started talking to Automobile Association of India where there are standards, and of course IIT Madras has probably a cell there, right? Because there are a lot of compliances, yeah?
So we do have a center of excellence of battery and motor testing.
No, I'm talking about the
yes,
RTO
Automotive Research Association. We have not initiated, we have just initiated conversations, but we've not really, because this idea is also quite new, and it actually exactly matched with Enable Makeathon 2, wherein this idea
that's a challenge where a lot of battery operated vehicles are facing.
Yes, it is.
Onto the road.
Yes.
Getting onto the road is still a challenge, right?
True.
Is your background in automobile manufacturing or any of these?
No, sir. My background is in product development. I have been working about for 10 years in product development and in businesses. This is my it's actually my second startup, which I am working on right now.
Just quickly, so when you said you needed 80 lakhs for 2 years of product development, that is you modeled that on just you doing the work? Because you didn't mention your team. You said you needed it for you.
Okay, I stand corrected. It is, I would like to refer it we. We need 80 lakhs.
Okay.
The company needs 80 lakhs.
Okay. And so, okay, so it would take you 2 years, and that would be the team of 3 of you?
No, we'll be expanding.
Okay. And what's the numbers of that expansion?
We're looking at about 15.
Okay, and what's the split in, what are the core competencies that you would?
So the topmost core competency we are looking at basically taking advisors or consultants on consultant basis, wherein the key team will have a basic and fundamentals on basically power electronics, motors, specialization in DC motors, and we're debating different types of DC motors that we will use. So these are the kind of the competency we'll be looking at when we hire the core team.
Okay, and so then will you be partnering with a DPO, or like how will the disabled people be involved in the future design?
In terms of, we'll have to really work out, but the team will be completely inclusive. We are envisioning an inclusive team, wherein it's not only users we are looking at who's going to be involved in it, but also, actually, since I said Enability Foundation already have about 2 to 3 people who are already employed, who are in this space, who are all part of the PWD also. So we are already an inclusive company which is making assistive devices for communication. So that DNA will still continue to be in our company.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
No more questions. Thanks.
My name is Kalpana. She's coming from Bangalore, APD. Thank you.
All right. Kalpana had a lot more to say, but she couldn't. And it's not just Kalpana. 350 million people around the world face this challenge every day. We are Unicom Solutions, Unified Communications. We believe that communication is the key to everything. And the way we communicate ultimately determines the quality of our lives. And listening is undoubtedly an important aspect of communication. Based on the research and insights we've gained so far, I'll give you a quick overview of how communication happens when a person cannot listen. Let's consider Alice, who's hearing impaired. She knows sign language and English. And let's consider Bob, who does not have any hearing impairment, but like majority of the population, he doesn't understand sign language. Now, if Alice wanted to talk to Bob, she would need an interpreter. And the question over here is availability. There are millions of Alice in the world, but unfortunately, there aren't millions of interpreters. And even if Alice had an interpreter, she wouldn't be available 24/7. And let's say this is the messaging era, and Alice texted Bob. But there's a problem here. Alice thinks in sign language, and she has very limited understanding of the grammar or vocabulary of English. So Bob may not ideally understand what she meant. So after analyzing this scenario, what we are trying to do is we are trying to make the hearing impaired independent of the need of a human interpreter by making their conversation understandable to anyone and everybody in a private way. And Ankit will come and tell you how we are doing that.
So now that we have identified the problem, we at Unicom try to bridge this gap in communication and bring to you Interact. What's the underlying magic? Unlike other traditional app in the market, we provide the convenience and remove the dependency on an external interpreter, and we bring it to you at very affordable prices. So let's say hi to Uni. This is basically the setup phase. You install the app, it's very easy to set up. There are 2 modes, an offline mode as well as an online mode. The offline mode comes in handy when you are, like the internet connection is not that good and you can connect to your user, other person, over the Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. The other mode is the online mode, which you can communicate to the other person over the internet. So the other feature of our app is finger spell keyboard. So this is a normal keyboard, and we also provide a finger spell keyboard, which is the sign language keyboard, which comes in handy for users who can directly communicate in sign language. So let's have a look into a sentence corrector. What we figured out is the thing that when people try to communicate through text, the messages are not that comprehensible and understandable. So how we try to make a proper sentence and make them expressible. So suppose this is an example, like when eat you. So it is formed into a corrected sentence, when do you eat? The next is a canvas, which is really handy, and suppose you cannot express yourself, you can just draw out anything and express yourself anytime, anywhere. The sign to text model. This module takes a sign input from the user and converts into text. For now, we have alphabets, and we are training our models on words and phrases, which can be like dynamically used to convert sign languages to text to the other part of it. Suppose this is like two persons are communicating, so the other person gets a subtitle thing what the sign language user is telling them. This is one of the demo how we are doing it. So this is Rahul doing the sign to text conversion. So it shows you the words and it interprets the alphabets one by one and gives you the output. And that's it. And now Rahul will brief you on the business model and how we'll reach to our users. Thank you.
So how to make a business out of this? Because many great ideas come and go, but there are the business model helps an idea to sustain in the market and really help the people. So what we have proposed, before really seeing what we have proposed, let's see what our app has that people will give us money for. So these are the unique selling points of our app. Personalized sentence corrector. As we saw that people of deaf people, they have their own grammar, and English has its own grammar. So what we are doing is correcting grammar in their own text conversions. And we have sign language keypad. So when we interacted with the users, they said that, okay, I understand, I think both in sign language and English. So why not make them sign language keypad? And next was sign to text conversion, as you have seen me doing that. So yeah, to make a business out of it, we really have two models, B2B and B2C. Why do we have these two models? So this essentially is an AI-based model. Now any company which is an AI-based, it needs two things to have a breakaway. It needs time and its data points. How do we get data points? We get data points by B2C model. Okay. So from B2C model, we are trying to get the data points. What we plan is to launch an app in Play Store and App Store for free for the users for initial set of years. So what that will help us is getting more data or raw formatted raw text so that we can have a huge database, so that the accuracy of the AI model increases. Now we are also trying to use the web browser plugins, and this can be helped for any other users. Me and you, we always do grammatical corrections, errors. So this plugins will help us form complete sentences. So by this, we are getting a lot of database, and over time we can get a more accurate model. Now how do we do business? Well, for that we have B2B. Sorry about that, it should be B2B. So what we are trying to do is file patent for our own for idea and the algorithms. With that, we can contact to companies, OEM companies, and this OEM companies will give us money because we will make these things, these three unique selling points to be as an accessibility option in all the low budget phones. You all know that low budget phones in India has a huge market. They are competitive. So why not an accessibility feature? That thing can help their market grow. So we saw this as an opportunity to earn money from that. And yes, while we are earning money from that and getting data points from it, we will require 2 or 3 years for this whole process to complete, and then our whole company could be an accurate AI-based company. Now, what competition do we have? It's not that we are first in the world. The research giant, Google, Microsoft, every other person are trying to come up with different model of sign to text. At product level, there's a company called Motion Savvy. They have their own sign to text converter, but there's a catch. The companies that are existing right now have their own devices, their own software. we are providing an app or a plugin for every user so that you don't need to spend an extra bit for a device, an external device. Now plugins have their own problems because they attract other companies like Grammarly. So yes, we'll have the competition, and the sign language keypad may be unfamiliar to the users. So we'll take some time, and then we can make the users more accustomed to the sign language keypad through our B2C model that you saw. Now, before I come to this competition is very healthy for us because that ensures that disabled people will get more better quality. So I'll stop here. Yes, I'll stop here. If you have any questions, and if you want to know what we'll do in the next 45 days, we'll be happy to let you know. So the sign to text that we showed was an MVP because we eliminated the background effects and we had a lot of assumptions, but we could actually get a small trained letters like, okay, H is trained and O is trained. Now we are at a stage where we can train only static models. So, some letters like J, Z, those cannot be, at this point of time, couldn't be trained by us. So yes, that's an MVP for us. That's only, just the static point we have trained.
Okay.
Okay, we had a constraint of time here. We had 6 days in our hand.
And during the event, how much work did you all do with, let's say, Bleed Tech, who I think would in some ways have a lot of data points you're looking for, right?
I'm sorry?
One of the other...
Bleed Tech, yes. The data points which they'll have was text-based. And yes, we actually contacted, that's how we got to know, okay, these are the problems, these are the, these are the real text-based problem that they have, but we didn't collect the data points from that because yes, it could be a great collaboration, it can be a great collaboration, but I think we should respect the competition mentality here. After this 15 days, if we both are selected, I promise to you that we will come up with them and we'll collaborate and do wonders.
Yeah, good.
We spoke to Indian Sign Language Association and they said they were willing to help us in any way, giving the data or research.
Yeah, sign language, ISL.
So remind me again how you think you're better than your main competitors, because I know Microsoft, for example, are doing a lot of work, and you mentioned them. So how are you going to beat them? Convince me that you're going to beat them.
They are not really out with a product. They are just making models to train, and they are outsourcing it. So not outsourcing, they are giving API endpoints so the other users can use it as services. What we are doing is building up our own product, and we are building it on our own models, not on any other research.
So there's a difference, like what they're doing is, they have skill and they are developing things. We have seen the problem and we are coming through that. So we have specific programs for it, like text generator and all. So we know that these whole things can be personalized to each user base, right? Everyone can have a personalized access to it.
So would you consider partnering with Microsoft or some other company?
Yes, we can get. I said so to somebody, like if we have the collaboration, we can get a huge data point and we can go upstairs like that.
And I think all of you are third-year students, right?
Yes, we are.
And you have, what, a year and a half left?
Yes.
So just talk me through the path that you put out in terms of your execution roadmap.
Yes.
And how much of it you're going to do when you're finishing university and grant funding, and how much is it when you're going to enter the real world?
So being in third year gives us the advantage that we'll have a lot of time to get the data points. We'll be studying and we'll be having our free version released, and by that time we can train the models. So January 2018, we plan to complete our product, set up the keyboard with and contact OEMs by March because it takes time, and then by April we can start our official data collection because till now we'll have a lot of data. Release the Interact app in July, and start associating with Skype and other thing and
video calling
apps. getting subtitled done. So it will take, I said it will take around 1 year or so, or maybe more. But we'll be going on that MVP line.
So you think you can get a lot of research support and so on from where you guys are studying? Just remind me where you're studying.
VIT University, Vellore.
So do they provide this kind of support for research and
yes, they do.
IP and all that?
There's a Microsoft cell. There are incubation centers. Yeah, there are research. We have research paper access to IEEE, IIT, and almost every other institutions.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Thank you very much, Unicom.
Thank you.
And next, last but not least, we have Veelava.
Okay, is it fine now? Great. So myself, Abhishek Shrivastava, and my colleague Bhavna Velturkar, we are from Team Veelava, and we are working on the area of accessible tourism, and our product is Entry Ticket. So talking in terms of some stats, at a global level, there is a forecast that in the accessible tourism area, the revenues are going to be like 7,000 billion in terms of in the next 15 years. In the context of India, we have around 32 World Heritage Sites, and the government of India in its Accessible India campaign, it has partnered with agencies like ASI and Ministry of Culture to make all the World Heritage Sites in India universally accessible. So they have started the Delhi and Agra circles, but they have to finish a lot more in a very time-bounded manner. We didn't had any right senses in terms of how many differently abled people are visiting these heritage sites. So what we tried to do was try to map the trend indicators. What is the ecosystem around differently able accessing these sites? So what we could figure out was like Fort Kochi becoming the first disabled friendly site, National Museum coming up with the exhibitions which are good for the people who can touch and feel it, and groups like Planet Able coming up, who are guiding, heritage guided tours. So in terms of issue and pain point, when we deep dive to understand what accessibility is, so it is not just the physical access or making barrier-free environment, but this is also about access to the information and access to a better experience. So we started with our site, which is Humayun's Tomb. It's in Delhi, and it's the inspiration of Taj Mahal. So at the site, we explored and we figured out some basic problem areas. The first one being there is a huge lack of information and wayfinding. There is inadequate infrastructure which leads to the lesser number of footfall from the differently able visitors. Also, the entry ticket has no value, and it generally adds up to the waste. So when we started the co-creation process, we started with the user research and insights, and just to highlight the key points, so we talked to Richa, and she had quite an interest in history, and she said that we are told that we are special, but once we are not allowed to touch anything or feel anything, we don't consider ourselves special. So that's a very powerful statement what she made. In terms of idea, we went there with a small mock-up and a prototype with a layered cut 3D to understand how the perception is when they touch and feel. What we came across was that the perception was very much closer to the actual image of the monument, so that was a very good insight. And likewise, we had a lot of insights. In terms of problem statement, we started with something like how can we make tourism accessible for differently abled. But later when we went across the co-creation process, we realized that accessibility is not just for the differently abled, but also for the abled. So it's a much bigger problem. And we refined the statement as in how might we enhance the experience while making tourism much more accessible. So in terms of value proposition, so we came up with something like an entry ticket. So it was about redefining entry ticket and how can we enhance more value to it, utilizing the universal design solution. So we wanted it to be something which is good not only for the differently abled, but also for the abled. And we wanted to start with something small, but significant and impactful. The three key parameters which we considered while designing was making it much more informative through wayfinding, map, and tech integration, to create a lot more awareness and sensitizing the abled group towards the inclusion of the differently abled, and adding a souvenir value so that it does not end up in waste after the tour visit. In terms of solution statement, what we have is our entry ticket helps universal visitors who want to explore tourism by providing more informative and inclusive guide to the site with a souvenir value for the enhanced life. Talking about the design features, so this is what we'll say as an entry ticket. We have something like Braille integrated text. It might look very simple, but we are trying to make a very powerful statement that we are trying to treat Braille at par with the text. Usually what happens is Braille comes after the text, and somehow for us it never looked cool. How can we integrate that? How can we consider the real estate which we have, especially in entry tickets? How can we integrate them and utilize the space? Also, what it is doing is it is sensitizing the abled group towards the inclusion of the differently abled. So the moment you understand that, okay, there is a visually impaired group who is also accessing the sites. At the same time, there is some kind of knowledge sharing that, okay, H in Braille comes like this, U in Braille comes like this. So there is a knowledge transfer as well happening. Quickly running through the other features, so there is a QR code for the entry. Later on, when you have visited the site, the same becomes a placeholder where you can get your picture pasted and act as a souvenir. We have a high color contrast combination, especially for the low vision people and elderly. To get more information about the monument, we have a QR code there. If you scan it, it will take you to the ASI page, which has much more authentic data. On the back side, we have the layout map, which has location pointers of the across the tomb. What also we have added is the public utilities, the toilet, the drinking water, which is obviously needed for each and every user. In terms of the brochure, so I would request Bhavna to just give you a handout. It's a prototype. In terms of the brochure, what we have got is something like a brochure format where we have used the layered 3D technique because it helps in a better perception of the actual image. What also we did was the content in this brochure ticket is something which remains unnoticeable for even the abled users. So like how the plan looks like. When you are browsing a site, you will not understand the map of the building or probably how the tomb looks like from the top. Also what we have done is we have added a sense of smell. So inside the tomb there is this incense sticks which is there because they appreciate the ritual there, and that's how we have added the sense of smell there. So what we can say is the proposed design helps in easy navigation and exploration. It helps in the better understanding of unnoticed elements. It will be accepted by the children, youth, elderly, like we are telling about the universal group. It also sensitizes other peoples towards inclusion, and it helps in waste reduction through the souvenir value. Yes, so the ticket can do only some bit in terms of enhancing the experience. It can be an Iron Man, but to deal with the bigger problem, we need to have a team of Avengers. And that's how we need to have a collaborative environment. Probably to get a complete experience around a site, it begins from your home to reach the site exploration, and when you come back. So for that, we need to partner with travel agencies, including cab services, probably the agencies who conduct guided tours and the audio tours. So we need to stitch together the current proposition in terms of the whole ecosystem to get a complete experience. In terms of business model, this is something which is very contextual and customizable, and it can fit into any environment which has a ticketing model. So whether it is heritage sites or museums or parks or public services like boarding passes, flight tickets or railway tickets, we can pitch as making an accessible entry ticket. So that's how we are picturing ourselves. Why will these people be interested in making accessible ticket is something like, because it will obviously help in the increase of footfall, because we are also targeting the differently able group. They will get a competitive edge over their peers, as well as this will add a brand image to their entire proposition. In terms of competitive analysis, we did not figure out a direct competitor in terms of accessible ticket, but what we have in terms of competition is the current ticketing system, which is somewhere there, which is at a very low price, but it has a very low value. So what we have currently as a ticket is something like this. So this the cost will rise a bit, but will have a higher value to it. But if it comes with a brochure ticket, the value will be much higher and it can be termed as a premium offering. This is the design evolution. So that is the current ticketing system, which comes like an ATM slip. It's a very small slip. Okay. And this is what we started with. So when we came in the co-creation process, we have something like that. And this is one of the mock-ups which we took forward to the users, and we tried to receive their feedback. And this is the final version. So the way forward is that since we have our prototype ready, it got ready in a very last stage, so we could capture only a few of the user feedback. But we would like to go to the universal group, since we are taking care of the elderly, the child, the youth, and we want to receive their feedback as well towards our proposition. And we need to refine and develop it. We need to test it pilot with the agencies who conduct heritage walks and audio tour, guided tours, because they work in a private sector, and probably collaborating with them would be easier at this level. And then probably we'll try to pitch it to the ministries and the tourism bodies, where we might tie up with MP Tourism or UP Tourism and ASI and Intact. So that's the 6 months plan which we have. Thank you. We also have a small video which we would like to play. So that video is about 2 of the users. One is visually impaired, and one is the executive director of a blind relief organization.
You know, the design is really nice, and you know, the aesthetics is really good. So one question is, the ticket is seen as a cost item. I mean, it's a revenue, it's how we make revenue, but the ticket itself, the physical ticket, is a cost.
Yeah.
So the cost is really going to get inflated here, right?
Right.
So what is the sort of difference between the cost of a normal ticket that you showed there, and what do you anticipate the cost of the entry-level ticket is?
Yeah, so just to give you a brief overview, so the current ticketing system for World Heritage Site is around ₹10 for a domestic user, and this one would cost something, just the ticket would cost something around 15 to 20 rupees in terms of development. That's what we foresee, and with the brochure it might come around to 50 to 70 rupees. That's our assumption, but we need to see how in mass manufacturing we can cut it down and tone it down. So that we have to figure out. Currently, what we have done is, this is all handcrafted. All the cutting and everything we have done by hand. So we need to go and see in terms of mass manufacturing whether laser cutting is a better option or CNC cutting, and how we can leverage that in terms of reducing the cost.
But do you have any sort of estimate of what you think that cost could be at scale?
To be honest, not really. We need to figure that out. Okay. Yeah. But what we understood in terms of heritage site is that whatever revenue they are getting, they are keeping them the entire money, but the government provides additional money for the maintenance. So whatever the revenue they are getting, they are utilizing it for their own thing, but for the maintenance of these heritage sites, they get grants or the amount of money rightly from the state government as well as the central government. So this is not something.
I'm just trying to see how much of elasticity is there for them to increase prices.
Okay. Yeah.
If they have to accommodate the cost of the.
Okay. That we'll have to figure out and check. Thank you.
No, this is very exciting. I like this very much. Yeah, very nice. Because there are a couple of friends of mine in Europe working on this and on accessibility. I'm sure it's going to work very well in Europe. I think it'll be taken up like that instantly. My biggest concern, because I personally have been trying to work on this area also, is production, manufacturing.
Yeah.
If you crack that, you have an IP then. I think that's where it lies. Because this is handmade.
Yeah.
That's rightly he asked you the right question. That's one part. So I'm not very sure the business side of it at all, really speaking. As design is wonderful, but then you need to crack production. How you're going to manufacture it. Once you crack that, then you're into textbooks and everywhere. It's just a beginning. I mean, why don't you attempt textbooks?
Textbooks, yes. I mean, that is something which we got even in the user feedback.
Because that's something which even Delhi, the blind, even in Dehradun, they're trying to work on those. You know,
okay.
Very, very.
Yeah.
So I also very much like your universal design approach. But one of the questions I have is about if you've thought about international markets. And my reason for asking that question is, in my humble opinion, getting to a World Heritage Site in India, if you are disabled, is an incredibly difficult task. So, and by their very nature, globally, they're very difficult to make accessible. They really are very, very difficult. So I think that whilst the motivation is brilliant and the product for World Heritage Sites is very well intentioned, I wonder about the uptake, because I don't know if people will be able to get there. So firstly, have you thought about how people will get to the World Heritage Sites? And secondly, if that's a challenge in India at the moment, have you thought about places where maybe accessibility is a little bit easier?
Sorry, the last line.
So have you thought about markets where the accessibility would be easier?
Okay. So the first question which you asked in terms of we need to make even the sites accessible, and that's where we mentioned something about a collaborative environment. So a ticket can do some bit of it, but to have a complete experience, we need to partner with things like, including inclusive cab services. So Uber is coming up with inclusive cab. We have Kickstart cabs here. So we need to create a complete storyline around it, right? From picking up, taking them to the site exploration, how we can stitch this with the audio tour to get a complete understanding of the monument, and then probably make them back to their homes and sharing their experience as well. So that is also very important, because accomplishment of a visually impaired of visiting that site would be a lot more, as we have a habit of, in Facebook we check in at a place. So for them, I think it will be much more higher value. That is something which we have to, develop in the next few months.
I'm going to very quickly cut Taryn off and just say that you should maybe just think about the international market, only because museums, I was in Washington, D.C. recently, talking to the Smithsonian, who have huge amounts of money, and they have a budget for accessibility. So you might be able to get the cost down by working internationally and then bring that back and influence the market.
Any more questions? Deepa?
I think you covered what I had to say. So the international market is what I was looking at. Like I was in New York, and this kind of experience, say for a friend with visual impairment, would give him a more view of what he's looking at. I think we should take it like reverse model here. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Vilava. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, we've come to the end of all the presentations. Thank you very much, teams, and thank you everybody for sort of seeing them and supporting them along. We're going to take a break now while the judges confer. It'll be about 40 minutes. In fact, at 6:30, the UK teams will have their, they will have an announcement to make about, what's happened there. So the judges, if we can ask you to slowly come to the other room, just give us a few minutes. You guys, I think you can hang out there. Hopefully there are drinks and tea and coffee. Yes? Outside? Or you can just hang around in here. And we'll see you back here at 6:30. Thanks.
So we make affordable and adjustable prosthetic kits for clinics all over the world. And our name is not spec. Thank you.
Can you just repeat that?
So I can repeat it, it's okay guys, I know, it's okay. So those guys were non-spec and they make an adjustable prosthetic for people around the world.
So the team is half American and half Indian. Hello.
Hello everyone. Hi everyone.
Hi.
We are Team Mithran. We are basically working on a self-leveling walker.
Mobile phones.
This walker basically helps elderly people to walk along the ground everywhere to the stairs, ramps, and curbs. That's all we do. Thank you.
Hi there. I'm Constantine. We're from Team Glasschair. We're developing a steering control for electrical wheelchairs based on smart glasses.
Hi, I'm Callie from Team Game Oval, and we make assistive technology so that disabled children are able to access commercial video games.
Hi, I'm Louise. I'm not from Team Amparo, but I'm going to tell you about the product because they had to disappear off to the airport. So Amparo are making an adjustable limb socket, which can be moulded quickly and cheaply and affordably across the world using a process which takes about an hour rather than days, months, and weeks.
It sounds like we have a lot of fun over the last couple of weeks. And you probably have some judges and mentors there to make some announcements.
We do. Would you like to meet our judges?
Yes. Can we meet the judges, please?
Hi, Taryn. It's Hardy.
Hi, Hardy.
And hi, and Ian.
Hi, Ian. Hi, David.
Hi, David. Hi, Ian. So we also have Chris as a judge, but he's had to rush back to probably vote for Brexit. So he's just left, having given his. Vicky, your job is to stop him. He might be in a cupboard.
So have you made the announcement to the teams as yet?
No, they're waiting. You keep talking and then they'll get to it.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so we are going to hand over to Ian, who is not being nominated by Chris as head judge in his absence, spokesperson. So you might want to come here.
Can you see me from here?
Yeah, they can't see you on them. They can.
Okay. Yeah, good. All right, excellent. Okay, so the five judges, have had a good discussion. I think I would say on behalf of the judging panel, thank you very much. All five judges always were incredibly impressed with not just the actual projects themselves and you guys as individuals, but also in the progress that has been made over the past 2 weeks. It's a relatively short space of time, and I think you've been able to do some incredible leaps forward in lots of different ways in that time period. So, yeah, well done, and congratulations to all of you. I think, without further ado, I shall go into the matter at hand and discuss and reveal the winners. So the first winner that I'm going to announce, the panel of judges felt made a tremendous amount of progress over the past 2 weeks. It was felt that from the beginning, they demonstrated a very inclusive approach, and I think that has continued over the course of 2 weeks we've had them here. The potential impact of the project was felt to be great and had lots of even further reaching application. It was a unique sector. The sector was play, and we felt that was quite unique. It had wider benefits, and we felt that this team in particular really embraced the programme so far, and it's going to be fascinating to see how this particular project develops over the next 2 to 3 months in the next stage of the competition. And so the first winner is Game Able. The second winner, topic of prosthetics has been quite strong through the last couple of weeks. We had 2 projects that looked at prosthetics. The panel felt that both of these teams demonstrated a unique innovation, and both teams were looking to really disrupt the market, although possibly now...
Excuse me? We're losing the sound. We're losing the sound. If you could just speak a bit closer to the mic.
Yeah, sure. I'll come forward. Is that better, Simon?
That's perfect, thanks.
Yeah, excellent. Both teams quite well advanced, and both currently in parallel running pilots, doing trials, gathering feedback from users and clinicians. And the panel felt, in fact, that it was very difficult to distinguish between both teams. And have made a decision to put both teams through. So both teams win. Now, just to follow on from that, both teams do go through as autonomous organisations. However, the next phase of the competition, so the next 2 to 3 months, there's a strong recommendation from all panel members, all judges, that both of these teams would really benefit from some collaboration and from really working together. The complementary aspect of both projects really jumped out the judging panel. And so for the next phase of the competition, I think in terms of prospects for winning the eventual competition, the panel really feels quite strongly and recommend that both teams look at where they can really complement each other and potentially work together. So that's not a necessity, but it's a very strong steer from the panel in terms of potentially winning the competition. Yeah, excellent. And then for the other 2 teams, I think, as I said at the start, very strong competition. We were very impressed, and we have some specific feedback. So I'm going to pass over to Francine, who's going to say a little bit in relation to Team Glass Chair.
I just wanted to probably, so everyone here today was incredibly strong, and it was a tough decision for us all. On Team Glass Chair, my background is actually in IoT as well. I see the huge potential for your solution as well. I think there's also opportunity to add, and you've probably already thought about it, the IoT elements into that as well. I think if you look at smart glasses, they are desperately looking for relevant applications to actually drive the adoption of smart glasses, and I think you bring that element there as well. So, you know, whether we do this afterwards, but I'm happy to introduce you to, if I have any contacts or connections, I'm happy to introduce you to other companies that may be interested with really connecting with you, because I think you've got huge potential. I think you need to keep maturing it and developing it, but I think that there's opportunity there. So, well done.
Thank you. Thank you, Francine. And then for Team Mitran, I think I'll be doing a few words.
Yeah. I thought it was actually a very novel idea in terms of what you're trying to do. I think it's quite investable, actually. I think the market is huge. Every one of us one day is going to be elderly, and there may be a need for using a product like that. So from our point of view, I would be happy to have a further conversation with you to help you maybe sort of develop the model a bit further and look at potentially investing in you as well. So thank you.
Wow, that's a fantastic result. Well done, Amparo, well done, Non-Spec, and well done, Gameable. I know that you're all probably kind of rushing off, and we hope that you all connect with each other so that, you know, we can plan a little bit the next 45 days of the competition for the people who are staying on. In this case, it will be that possibly you need to also inform us, you know, whether Mitran or Non-Spec require some support from India. Non-Spec or Mitran require some support in India, because we know some of the fabrication could possibly be done here as well.
So just to confirm, the winners are Amparo, Non-Spec, and Gameable.
Yes, that's what I just said.
Okay. Okay, sorry. No, that's what I
I think Taryn was trying to say that no matter even those that didn't win, if they need some help with getting something manufactured in India, that he would be happy to help connect them to people that would help them, especially Team Mitran, because they would be based in India. So I think it's just a communication error translation error. But overall, just from me, just to say that I miss you guys in London. Well done, and I'm looking forward to seeing how you all do in the next 45 days. Well done, Adam.
Thanks very much. And, you can see a lot of teams here. I'm sorry we haven't finished the judging process here, but we will connect back with whoever is there and announce the winners later tonight. Fantastic. Thank you very much, judges. Thank you very much, organizers. Thank you very much, mentors. And bye for now.
Okay, so hi guys. How are you? So before I announce the winners, I just want to say on behalf of all of the jury members, but also the team that has helped you over the last 15 days, that it's been a pleasure to listen to your speeches, your pitches, and it's been a pleasure to see the growth in all of the teams. You'll notice, so well done. It's been a very difficult journey for, I think, everybody. So it's a great achievement to have got this far. The other thing is that when we were deciding and debating who should go through to the next stage, it was very clear that some teams just lacked some user testing or clarity in user needs, so things around the design that unfortunately maybe with another 2 days or another week would have got you over the line. And the same, there were other teams where the same was true for the business case. There was just a little bit lacking in terms of really understanding the market and being able to scale. And for a couple of teams, the issue was more around thinking that possibly the Enable Makeathon in its current format for the next 45 days is not the best fit for the company. So with that in mind, the 6, I'm going to do these in reverse order? In reverse order. No order. Okay, so then I'm going to literally randomly read words. Okay, you ready? So the first team to move forward to the refinement stage is Unicom. The second team to move forward is Torchit. The third team is Bleetech, excuse me.
And the fourth, right? The fourth. Oh, there's no order. Okay. Autobot. And my favorite for growth. I think he can make one. And the last but not the least is Vilava.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jayadev. It's been a pleasure being here this evening. A lot of fun. It's honestly very hard to take a decision between ideas because every time you look at ideas, you always believe there's a great opportunity there. But it's been a pleasure being here. Thanks for having me.
Hi, it's been wonderful evening and half a day, and it was very difficult for us. You guys made it very difficult for us, and also the teams who not made it. I think there's a lot of potential there, a lot of interesting ideas. You could always get in touch with us whenever you feel like, anytime. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, I believe there's a party.
No, just a little bit before the party, before we go out, just have to listen to me again.
I think we should party.
So congratulations to the teams that have won. Really well done. I just want to also say to the teams who haven't made it, we're not leaving your hand just yet. We are going to meet either the teams who are leaving tonight, or the teams tomorrow who have not made it as well, so that we can understand how we can, kind of help. As the judges said, it might not be the appropriate to go in the same way as has been done, but we understand there's potentially huge impact for the ideas that you've had, and we're going to try and see how we can support that outside this process. So as you saw in the UK, there were some teams that won, and other people were talking to incubators, and we're going to try and find what's appropriate to the ones who haven't. I just want to also thank a lot of people. First of all, I really, really admired the work everyone put in. I thought this is for the teams. A huge thanks to you, because it was a difficult process. You probably haven't been through one like that before, but people were up all night, people worked so much, people collaborated. It was really fantastic. Second round of thanks goes to the mentors who joined us. I just wonder whether if there are any mentors here, and I'm not going to ask you to stand up, Shakti, but any other mentors here? I think some people have been in during the day, but a big thank to the mentors, really extraordinary group of people. I want to thank also, we had people from APD here, but all of you teams have really benefited from the interactions that you've had with persons of disability at APD, but also at Mitra Jyoti and other places. And I think, to be honest, it was reflected in the changes that you made, the discussions that you had, and I think that they have really played an important part of the process. So thank them very much. One other group that stands out for me are the designers. I know that I can see some designers here. Can anybody who calls himself a designer or herself a designer please stand up? No designers? Don't be shy. Yeah, you sit down. There's been a huge amount of support, and I think these people who are darting in and out in our way have also produced a huge amount of material, both for the teams and for the process. I would really like to thank the communications team. Please come out here so we can take some pictures of you for once. Thank you so much for all the work. A lot of people working behind the scenes from the ICRC. Anybody here from the ICRC? and lots who've come and gone. So, thank you really a lot for all that kind of support. And finally, I'm just going to call on stage, 4 people who can't be separated. 5 people, Sushil. They're all standing together. Can I call you all here in front, please? Please, go on. This is the co-creation team. These are the people who caused all of you all these problems and made such an incredible program. All of them very, very different people. Fantastic stuff.
So before you all go, can we just have one last round of applause for you, Tarun?
No.